Right, mate, we're on. Yes, people, welcome back to Process. Today, we are joined by one of my fellow Nuffield Health PTs, Mr. Marc. Welcome to the podcast, mate.
Hello, mate. You all right?
Good, not bad. Pleasure to have you on anyway. Good to have you on. We've been wanting to do this for a long time. Two reasons. One, your transformation, your story is quite interesting. And I wanted you to kind of tell your story to everybody. Two, big topic at the minute is obviously being vegan. You are a vegan yourself, and I had a little. I know, keep it quiet. I know.
Plant-based.
Plant-based, yeah. I had my little spell of trying it out, and I've learned a lot from it, and I think I'm going to probably follow it forward a bit. So be interesting to talk about that as well. So we'll start off with your story. First of all, kind of what started you getting into fitness, and what were you like when you're a little bit younger?
So for me, when I was younger, I was like, played a little bit of football, just five-a-side sort of stuff, but not really like anything crazy. And then it was like a running thing as I got older, 14, 15, I would be putting on like almost like a stone every year. It was like a running joke in my family. So I'd be like 15, I was 15 stone, 16 stone, got to the point where I was just really overweight. Got to like 18 stone in total. Well, roughly, I wasn't really checking my weight all the time, but I did jump on the scale and I was about 18 stone. And then I got to the point where I was like, right, I need to sort of lose weight. And then I didn't go about the gym route. Funnily enough, actually, it's a weird story. I went to the gym once when I was 18 stone. I was telling this to Donna, the manager at Nuffield. And I went in there once, like when it was Greens, not when it was Nuffield, like it used to be Greens ages ago. I went in, I was too self-conscious to go back again. And then 10 years down the line, I'm like a PT there. So I just thought that was a bit random. But yeah, I was like 18 stone. And then I basically lost about 6 stone in total before then putting on a bit more muscle after that. And then building a couple of stone worth of muscle. But yeah, that was my journey into like fitness. Not a fitness person whatsoever. Just all about was just messing about when I was younger, just eating loads of food, low activity. Obviously that's the reason why I put the weight on, and then got to the point where I was like, right, let's try and sort it out with diet.
Yeah. What do you think triggered you kind of to make that change and start obviously losing weight and going to the gym and looking at what you eat and stuff? Was there anything that triggered you to flip the switch?
Probably, to be honest, I was just really like insecure and just self-conscious. Obviously, when you're overweight, like sometimes when you're really overweight, you don't realize how overweight you are, but you still know you're overweight. Like you don't want to just wear a t-shirt. You feel really self-conscious. Like going to the gym or going to the beach or anything like that with your friends. You don't want to do that because maybe you're gonna have to take your top off and all of this sort of stuff. So you sort of avoid situations like that. It sort of impacts your life, to be honest. So I was like, right, I need to start losing weight. And I just got it in my mind. I was like, I'll have breakfast, lunch, dinner, and I'll just go like that. I would start at a job. I was working in a garden centre, so I was always on my feet and I was quite active. So that in combination with just getting a hold of my diet a little bit and not just slamming food down, that helped us a lot, just because I wanted to lose weight and just for confidence, really. It wasn't really like, for my health. It was just because I just felt uncomfortable in my own skin, mostly. So yeah, that's what got us into it initially.
Yeah, I think that's probably the big thing for a lot of people when they do kind of make that change. It gets to a point where it's really affecting them mentally. A lot of people get into the gym for just the kind of ego side, like they want to get big and muscly and stuff like that. But a lot of people don't they're in this kind of stuck in this anxiety sort of state, anxious state, I should say, where they're more worried about the weight and stuff and what they look like, not so much looking to impress girls or whatever, which a lot of people get into the gym for. So it's good that you kind of got to that state, because some people just let it go. There's a lot of people that just kind of just keep going down that path, and it kind of spirals into one thing leads to another, and the whole lifestyle kind of just goes downhill. Whereas obviously you've made that change, and I think a lot of people will find if they get into that routine of eating a little bit better, training, getting into that routine, think other things in their life will start getting a little bit better. Which I don't know if you found that yourself in terms of aspects outside of the gym.
100%. Like I said, like when I was like 18, 19, like no confidence whatsoever. Like looking a girl in the eye, do you know what I mean? You'd be like, oh, like just really just insecure, just that general sort of like weird, insecure, like overweight guy. I would just used to sort of just like hang about with my friends, but again, not a lot of like really socializing with like large groups and stuff like that. Just sort of keeping them in like tight circles. So then, yeah, I mean, if I didn't do anything about it, I would have been definitely on the route to like type 2 diabetes. If like the age I am now, if I'd continue going, who knows what sort of weight I would be, because like I've got just a profound ability to put a crazy amounts of fat on, which is, I suppose, lucky, like my genetics are sort of geared up that way. Obviously, it is my activity level and in the food that you're eating, but again, like I can just pile weight on. Just it was crazy. I put so much weight on in such a short period of time. But yeah, it was just, I'm glad I got into that, just like you say, for my confidence, really. I know people do it nowadays because of confidence. People, especially with Instagram and Facebook and everyone, you feel you're pressured to look a certain way. So it's like the societal pressure of sort of, I must be like this, I must have big muscles, but I've got to have abs at the same time. And if you're a woman, you've got to have like tiny waist, but you've got to have a huge bum and all this sort of stuff. So it's just, I think everyone struggles with it, to be honest, especially more and more nowadays, because it's just more and more in your face, like Instagram. Like that's why I've come off Instagram just in general. I personally just don't think it's like the healthiest place to be. There's good aspects of it, 100%, but a lot of it is just quite negative. It's very much, well, I mean, even just looking at the studies, what it can do for eating disorders in certain types of people. Just general sort of body image, like dysmorphia problems, really. So I think that's what a lot of people are getting into the gym for. I mean, there's not many people, small section of people be like, okay, I'm going to the gym to be healthy. You know, that I think there's more people going to the gym because they want to look a certain way, because they either want to impress other people, or they want to just feel comfortable just being themselves, which is a little bit strange, really. It's a bit sad that is the case. But I genuinely think that is a lot for a lot of people. I mean, most people that speak to me even want personal training, it's like they want to lose weight. It's because they want to look better, really. And the reason they want to look better is because they think they have to look a certain way in order to be, they want that validation from others, or they just want to feel like normal. Obviously, modern day life in general is not great for, in terms of obesity. Like obesity is rising like ridiculous like numbers, so it is increasing, and it's to do with modern day life. But yeah, I would say more people are doing it for just for like aesthetic reasons, I would say.
No, 100%. When you mentioned social media there, I think it is like, I can't remember what I listened to a podcast the other day, but I think what they said was you shouldn't really be on social media if your mental health isn't in check. If you don't have a stable mental health, I would just completely scrap social media. Realistically, I know myself, I'd probably be happier without it. But the reason I'm on it is because I know what I want to do, and I want to try and affect a lot more people. And
for your business,
for my business, 100%. Like I can't remember the last time I posted on my personal account or on Facebook and stuff, all to do with my business. But like I said, I know that I would be a lot more mentally healthier and probably have a better relationship with my family and my girlfriend, to be fair, because you can focus more attention on them rather than constantly thinking about, like, I know myself, I'm stressing out, right, I need to put a post on today, I need to put stories on today, I need to message my clients, I need to do this, that, and the other, because I know that's my business sort of thing. It is kind of sad that the world is that way, but in a sense, if I feel in a way, if your business isn't out there, especially in personal training, obviously there's PTs that can do it like yourself, who do it without the social media aspect and do really well, really successful, have their own gyms and stuff.
You can be 100%. You can be really successful in a gym. Like you don't need social media to, like, some people think you have to for PT. Like you don't. Like 4 years I worked in pure gym. I mean, I had my social media, but I was always on my stories. I never used to put stuff on posts, which probably in hindsight, looking back, is probably not the best way to do it, which is not, obviously, because you need to be on their posts all the time. But I was really busy. Like I say, I was just talking before the start of the podcast. Like 10 hours a week PT for me was like, wow, this is a slow week. Normally averaging 15, 20 hours of PT. And I wasn't going at it like, oh yeah, I was just sort of doing it as a job, which again, not the best way to go about it. If you're going to do it, like, don't do that. Go at it like a business and do it like properly. But even then I was doing really well at it. But obviously the social media side of things, for building stuff up for your business, for your brand, is really beneficial. I mean, it's like crazy marketing, like, and almost you can do it for free if you're really savvy with it.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay a lot. It's not like you got to be doing like infomercials, like, hey guys, like I'm a PT, like you can just do like small little ads, or you could just generally just build things up, just sort of naturally, just by putting posts up and letting people follow you, and then that leads into online stuff. So it is a great tool. But again, if it just depends on the person. Like, I came off it for the end of uni, for my last year of uni, and it was the best thing. Honestly, I've never been happier. Like, I've been on social media, like Instagram mostly, for about 4 years. And I came off it like January, like basically like January 1st, not like a New Year's resolution thing. I was just like, right, I need to sort of focus, because apart from the negative sort of things, are looking like, oh, they've got like better things than me, or I'm not doing as much as I should be. Like, your mind starts going to different places where you've got to stay in your own lane, sort of thing. I think that's the main thing, is staying in your own lane. Like, you're in third year uni, Mark, like focus on your stuff. You can't be doing this, you can't be doing that. You just need to focus on what you do. So right, I shut it down. And for like the 4 or 5 months, genuinely, I was a lot happier. Like you were saying, you'd be happier. And I guarantee that honestly you would be. But it's like the sort of necessary evil when it comes to business. That you do need that sort of thing. That's the only thing.
100%. And hopefully one day that it gets to the point where I am able to step off it a little bit, or maybe even have someone to do it for me. That's the dream.
Do it for you.
Do it for you. That's what you want.
Yeah.
Because it is a lot of work. Like, people don't realize. Like, I put a lot of hours into it, and it is almost like unpaid hours.
You do a lot.
And it can. I've kind of like put it into my. Kind of got used to having it into my daily routine, so it's almost like a habit, which can turn into a bad habit, because there is times where I'm sat at myself just scrolling through social media, or like I'm not very good at staying on one task at a time. So for example, today there was a little bit of updates I need to do for one of my online clients, but then I got sidetracked because I needed to make a video for today's post, and I was halfway through editing that post, and I jumped back into my program, and then I'm alternating between too many things because my mind's constantly thinking. I think being able to have control of your mind and being able to have control of your time will help, like you said, with your university, be more productive. Like, get scrapping social media completely makes you 100% focused 100%. On the task at hand.
I mean, just look at your productivity. Look at your productivity and just see what you've done. I mean, it's a good little thing on your phone. And just, what are you doing? I mean, fair enough if you got a business and you're on social media for a reason, but like, if you don't have a business and you're just sort of on social media, like, fair enough, go on there, enjoy a little bit of time, but just look how much time you're spending on it. Like, you'd be on there and you'd be like, okay, I've spent 4 hours on social media, and you're like, what have you done? Like, what real, like, unless you have been researching, like you're following great people that are putting out so much like informative posts, and you've spent 4 hours of just absorbing pure information, then that's fair enough. If not, then you're wasting your time, really. I mean, what are you doing? Like, you got 4 hours on that, and then people are spending maybe 3-4 hours maybe watching Netflix. This is like, if you look back on the end of your life, this is what I always think, if you look back and you're on your deathbed and you're sort of like, oh, I'm just reminiscing about all those hours that I spent flicking through Instagram or watching Netflix. Like, you're not going to do that. That's not going to pop into your mind at all. So I just feel like, in terms of productivity, it is the worst possible thing. You're going to end up just wasting a lot of your life, and it's sad to say that, and it is just small little things, 2 hours here, an hour here, but that builds up, and then in a week you look and you think, oh man, I've spent 26 hours on Instagram. Like, what could you done? You could have wrote a book. You could have, you know what I mean? You could have been doing an extra course on something to try and learn and develop yourself. Like, you could, I mean, I don't know, go to like Spanish lessons or anything. Rather than scroll through social media and get like mental health problems.
I know, mate. It is crazy. Like, I think
it's a bit crazy.
A good little method that I try and do and fail miserably at, my girlfriend will tell us, like, say, he never does this. Is try and literally just set yourself maybe like half an hour where, like, right, this is my half an hour to do my social media. Like, take blocking like your time. Like, I've done a podcast with a lad last week, Simon, really successful online coach, and he blocks out everything in his day. Like, he blocks out 2 hours for training, 2 hours for check-ins, half an hour for making the video, whatever it is. Like, the same for social media. Block out a bit of time. Like, give yourself till like between 6:30 and 7:30 to go on your phone, get your messages, Instagram posts, whatever, out the way, and then just turn, like, I'm quite good at turning my phone on airplane mode at like 8:30, 9 o'clock, because So I know from then, right, my phone's on the side, I'm just winding down to go to bed. Little things like that that I'm trying to get better at. But like you said, you can just waste so much time flicking through your phone. And like Instagram, Facebook, all them social medias are designed to be addictive. 100%.
So addictive, yeah. It's like so addictive. That's how they make their money at the end of the day.
Called The Social Dilemma. If you haven't watched that, like it just talks about all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Like send you notifications or something at random times of the day to get you to click on, because if you're normally on at that time, and like they make their money from that, so they make it addictive. Like even you post a photo up and then you see all them likes coming through, you're getting sort of like dopamine hits, so you're sort of like, oh, like you're basically getting like a small amount of a high of it. So it gets into those situations for some social media. This is why it dumbs it down as well, because you got like some Instagram influencer, she's like putting a good post up like that, and it's like, okay, she's got like 100 likes or something, 2,000 likes, and then she posts a photo like of her booty, and then she's getting like 20,000 likes. I mean, mentally she's going to want to do that for engagement and for her business as well. She's going to want to do that. So just all around, if you follow the right people and you're productive with it, so it's like, right, I'm going to go onto social media because I'm going to do this for my business, X, Y, and Z, or I'm going to try and follow these people because they put out great information. I want to learn that. But I feel you can very easily just end up aimlessly sort of scrolling through there and then going on to explore. Never go on to explore page. That's the main one, really, isn't it?
To be fair, it's just a downward
spiral. Like, if you do, man, that's it. That's
rabbit hole after rabbit hole. It's just never ending. It's a black hole.
It's really bad.
Yeah, that's a good point though. Like, be careful who you follow as well, because I know, and myself, I've started to be a bit more conscious about what I'm posting. Not so much making my Instagram, because my business, not making it all about me, but trying to provide content for clients. And I want to try and post a bit more about my clients. And like the other day, I just put a little thing on my stories shouting at one of my clients for his work and stuff. I'm being a bit more conscious about it, because I am very conscious that I post a lot of like pictures of me and stuff. Like it tries to I'll try to make my page look aesthetically pleasing, just as like a business side of it. But then there's also crossing a line where it's like, it's literally just all me and the content I provide. I'm just posting for this. So I'm trying to be more conscious about that, because it's so easy. Like if you click on, like, for example, the girls' Instagram page, and it's all just like, here in the gym doing a booty workout, arse workout, this, arse, like all that sort of stuff. It's very much like just trying to draw people in and get attention. Whereas there's probably better people out there who have less followers, but are providing actual like productive content, stuff that you 100%. Can learn from. So be careful of that. And then also back to the point about obviously your body transformation. I find it probably a lot more impressive seeing the transformation from like a 20 stone individual down to like a I don't know, 13, 14, something like a healthy weight. I find that a lot more kind of rewarding, especially as a PT. If I seen that, I find that more rewarding than rather getting someone from like normal to shredded, because there's a lot more of a mental transformation and lifestyle transformation. So just because, say you were a 20, 22, whatever, like obese weight kind of individual, and you were dropping down to that weight, don't feel like you need to go to the extreme, and like don't think that you're not as good as someone who's absolutely shredded, because your transformation, I look at you and think you've not just changed physically, but obviously your health's obviously massively improved. Mentally, you've changed your lifestyle, you've changed a lot of habits. Like to get to that point, I think is a lot more kind of mentally challenging. There's a lot more boundaries and stuff you have to get over, rather than getting shredded. Obviously, it is really hard 100%. To get shredded in good shape, but however, probably a lot more respect for that. So don't always fall to the pressures of social media.
Well, that's it, because everyone wants to be shredded, but also huge. But yeah, I mean, if somebody's lost huge amounts of weight, like that doesn't happen in 12 weeks. If you're lean and you stay in a calorie deficit for 12 weeks, you're probably going to be shredded at the end of it. If you're incredibly obese and you stay in a calorie deficit for 12 weeks, you're not going to be shredded. It's just as simple as that. Like, you're going to have lost weight, but you're not going to be shredded. So the journey is a lot longer than that. So that's what I think people have unrealistic expectations when they're really overweight, thinking like, oh, well, this guy done like a before and after, and he done a 6-week shred, and it's like, well, yeah, this guy's like trained for years and like maybe put on a little bit of body fat, and now he was only like 15% body fat. He's trained for like 12, he's done a diet for 12 weeks, and now he's lost loads of fat, and he's obviously shredded. And then you say, oh, well, I'm going to get like that, and then you put in that work and you're expecting to get the same results as them guys, and it's not going to work. So you just got to take that slower, more sustained approach, and think about, like you're saying about the your habits. That's the main thing. It is literally habits. Anyone can jump into a diet for 6 weeks, but like you're gonna yo-yo out, and I've done that loads. Literally, I've yo-yoed so hard, like ridiculously, going in like 12, not even 12 weeks, like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, doing fasted cardio, doing like training in the evening, strict meal plan, and like and I'd do it crazy well. I would get really quite lean, even like after I'd lost a lot of my weight, and I'd come down to like a lower body percentage, body fat percentage. You could do these intense diets, but they only really work for a short amount of time. So it's trying to think about lifestyle changes that's gonna actually keep you in a healthy body fat percentage for a long period of time, rather than being shredded for like a month or something, or not even a month, a couple of weeks, and then it's like, dominoes o'clock, and then you put that weight straight back on, because yo-yo dieting is really, I mean, it's too easy to do, and it's because it's it's like not realistic to sort of stick to that sort of those harsh diets. And again, that's back to like sort of what you expect to get from your diet in that sort of 12 weeks. Like it's harder for someone who's really overweight to diet down to those low body fat percentages. So some people just say, just try and find a healthy body fat percentage where you feel comfortable, you're happy, and don't let external pressures sort of push you into going too extreme. Because you'll spend years, and this is from experience, you spend years of your life just yo-yo dieting, and when you could have really just dropped down to 15%, not exactly being where you want to be, and then just built more muscle and just stayed in that and stayed healthy. And then if you wanted to get really super shredded for whatever reason, you can easily do that. You just drop into a diet, but trying to always aim for that in the long run just leaves you spinning your wheels, really. So that's advice for anyone that's really overweight and they want to lose. Like, drop down, fair enough, get into a healthy body fat percentage, but don't think that you've got to have shredded abs to be healthy, because it's usually not the case. It's not realistic, and it's not sustainable in the long term, really.
Yeah, I was going to say 100%. It's not sustainable. It's not healthy. Like, people don't understand the effects of being shredded, like on your hormones, stuff like that. Like, I got really shredded probably 2 years ago, and I got my bloods done, and my cortisol levels were through the roof. And
really?
Yeah, like really, really high. That was one of the only things that was really bad. But my cravings for food, I was like so food focused. Like, I think I mentioned it to you before. I was like, got to a point where I was literally scooping Nutella, like, and it's going in with my fingers, scooping Nutella into my mouth. And at night time, when I started getting these cravings, it got really bad. And I would counteract that the next 2 days, eating like 1,500 calories, which is like nothing to me. My like cutting calories were like 2,800. So I was just like slicing them in half for the next few days to counteract it. There's a lot of like the mental health side of it, and being very food focused. It can be really serious. And I wasn't obviously like even bodybuilding kind of stage shredded. That was just me being relatively lean. So don't get so fixated on that. And then going back to the social media side, people on Instagram and stuff, they're choosing the good photos. There's a bit of editing in it, like, and they're obviously, people are probably just saving the photos from when they were shredded and posting them like in the future, sort of thing. But one thing that I've kind of learned, and I think I'm trying to push with a lot of my clients, is focus on feeling good rather than looking good. Find something that's kind of sustainable. Find a training plan that you enjoy doing. It doesn't have to be strict bodybuilding. Like, I know myself that doing a strict bodybuilding plan is the most optimal way of building muscle, but I want to build muscle, but I also want to like move around and feel good, have a bit of conditioning, be able to like go for a run if I wanted to, all this sort of stuff. And then also with my diet, I know that if I'm adding in a little bit of additional condition, I'm burning a few more calories. I'm not only feeling good, but then I can also, if I want to, every so often, I can have a Domino's and not stress about it. Obviously not going overboard with it, but I'm just staying at a kind of a healthy weight, and find the thing that you enjoy and that you're going to sustain. It doesn't have to be, like I said, going crazy calories, going stupidly low with your body fat. Find something healthy and whatever you're going to sustain. I'd rather you be 15-20% body fat, be happy, be able to go out with your friends at the weekend, still enjoy your training and still progress, rather than living in this Tupperware like lifestyle where you just walk around. You can't even go out for Nando's with your friends because you've got to live out with Tupperware. People, there's two massive different ends of the spectrum. There's the ones who take it really seriously, and then there's the ones who kind of completely lose it. A little bit of balance is the key thing, I think.
Bodybuilding's completely ruined people's health and fitness. because obviously you get into it, you're like, right, I want to get lean. Fair enough. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be lean, and like maybe you get shredded, go for it. But then you sort of think, well, how do you do that? And then you instantly like, well, who's doing that? And then you look at bodybuilders. So it's like, well, what are bodybuilders doing? Well, they're doing the cardio. They're doing like maybe the fasted cardio, maybe not, but they're doing the cardio and the training. They're eating their meals, and it's like chicken, rice, broccoli, in the restrictive. And then you watch the bodybuilding motivation videos and say, you can't do anything, man. You can't go out and enjoy anything. It's like, you just got to live this life. And it's like, okay, fair enough. Like if you're a bodybuilder, 100%. If you're a normal person, like an average person that just wants to be in good shape, trying to emulate a bodybuilder is not going to be great for your sort of quality of life at all. And it's going to end up leading you to them places where you're restrictive, you're overly restrictive, leading to food binges and stuff like that, or you just sort of you're not going to see your friends or your family, and like I don't know, like, oh, I'm not going to here with my friend, like you're saying, like Nando's or whatever. I'm not going there because I can't fit it into my calories, or like just whatever it may be. Like it gets really restrictive, and you don't need to be that restrictive to be a healthy body fat percentage. You just have to have an understanding of just general energy balance, really. Like energy in, energy out. Eat healthily, 70-80% of your diet. Have a little bit of a treat. Like if you're doing that like all the time, and then you have a Domino's, like you say, it's not going to be the end of the world. You're not going to get like obese off like one Domino's. Someone said it ages ago, I don't know who it was, but it was like one pizza isn't going to make you like fat, and like one day in the gym isn't going to make you lean. So it's like you've got to think about the balance of it. Like if you're having pizzas all the time, it's probably going to make you fat. Like if you're not going to the gym, or if you're going to the gym all the time, you're probably going to be in a healthier body fat percentage and just be generally healthier. But yeah, the food cravings is a big thing, especially when you're restricted like that and you're going for the diets. As what you said about those, it's basic binge purging, what you were saying. So I started learning about this in my last year of uni. We're doing like psychological side of like eating and weight disorders, the module was called. And I didn't realize, like I knew I had some problems with food, but I didn't realize like how bad it was. And you would do that where you would binge eat because you're dieting too hard, and then you end up binging on food, and then the next day you compensate, so you're fasting and you're doing all this cardio, and like you're like, okay, well I'm just going to have one meal tonight to try and counteract that, or just have a little bit of food, and then you end up maybe binging again at the next night. And basically what that is like a mild form of bulimia nervosa. So it's bulimia basically. So obviously normally bulimia, you think, oh, someone's going to throw up like after they've eaten, but it doesn't have to be thrown up. It just has to be some type of purge. So the purge, it can be coming from just reducing your calories to ridiculously low the next day, or doing excessive amounts of exercise to compensate for it. So it's actually a type of bulimia and I think it's so common. People don't talk about it. And it can happen to anyone, like not even people that have struggled from being really overweight, like you just said there. Like it can happen to anyone. I think it's so prevalent in the gym society, if that's even a thing. Like people have this problem where they're overly restricting, and then they end up binging, and then they end up doing too much exercise to compensate for that, especially if you're a PT, because there's so much pressure to look a certain way if you're a personal trainer. Like that just is. And if that's pressure to sort of like diet, I've got to be lean, I've got to be big. And I mean, I think that's also pushes personal trainers to sort of think, okay, well, I'm going to hop on some extra PEDs, you know what I mean? To like be like, well, I'm going to look a certain way. So I think like all round, like it can be such a negative thing, like being a personal trainer as well, even though you want to do it to help people, it can lead into these problems where you end up going maybe on substance abuse, you know what I mean? Like PEDs or stuff like that, or just getting into sort of negative habits with food and getting into these bulimic sort of tendencies, which I think for influence, that's like a hidden thing. I think it'll come out a lot more in the future. We'll find out more PTs and more influencers that they've been secretly sort of hiding this like bulimia nervosa type traits. I mean, maybe they didn't recognize it, because I never recognized it. I was just sort of like, oh man, I slipped up again, so I'm gonna have to do this. And then once I realized it, that helped me so much, because I could actually see it objectively. And I was like, oh, actually, this is a real thing. Like this is not just me sort of you know, like being, you know, crap and not being able to stick to my diet is because it's to do with your sort of perception on how people view you. It's to do with your over evaluation of weight and shape, more specifically. So you're really obsessed about the way you look. It's a bit like people who are anorexia, they're sort of obsessed about the way they look. Same with bulimia, you're obsessed about the way that you look, and it becomes a negative thing. You then maybe you lose some weight, and this can happen if you've lost a lot of weight. People will then give you, it's like almost like reinforcement. So they'll be like, oh wow, you've lost a lot of weight. Well done. So that positive thing, even though it's a compliment, it actually makes you intensify your efforts. It's like, oh, well, I've lost weight. I want to get even more compliments by losing even more weight and getting even more shredded. And then it leads into this, like I said, this over evaluation of weight and shape, which is just such a negative thing for your state of mind, and leads to a lot of like binge eating disorders, essentially, or not binge eating disorders specifically, but bulimia and like potentially anorexia, which is more common in females, but it still can be common in males as well.
No, some of the things you said there kind of like spring to my mind when you say that about like when you say one that you overeat, which is why one of the reasons why I like fasting. In terms of one reason is just because I feel better for it, in terms of especially in the morning if I'm a bit more busy and my digestion feels a bit more better. But thinking about it, when I'm like, say I have like a big meal the night before, or like I have some pizza or whatever it is, I always push the next day. I always push my fast a little bit longer and a little bit longer each time. Like normally, like if I have,
I mean,
I don't know, if
it
I have
makes
pizza
sense.
and a few beers on a Saturday, I won't probably eat until 2:00, like 2 p.m. the next day. Like it's that mental thing, like, all right, I'm going to sacrifice the calorie thing. I feel fine for it. It's not like I'm not like starving and dying, like I'm shaking and stuff because of it.
No.
It's like a mental thing.
Well,
So I
you
want
won't,
to try.
because you would have had it.
Yeah, I know, because I want to try and stay a reasonable body fat, like stay lean for Instagram, whatever it is, and look good kind of thing. And whereas I know that obviously putting a little bit more body fat on is probably a little bit better in terms of building muscle and stuff like that. So there probably is, like you said, a lot more influencers that are in the same sort of mindset, the same sort of boat with that. I've never really thought of it in that sort of way until you brought it up.
100%. It's so like, if your job, it doesn't matter what your job is, but if you're supposed to look a certain way and you feel pressure to look a certain way, that's going to happen. I mean, it's theory. Like you would think like, okay, I've eaten 2,000 extra calories tonight. I probably don't need to eat as much, which is fine. You don't need to eat as much, and you can do it. It's not like, I've done that once, it's really bad. I'm actually trying to find it on my computer here, because doing it now and again is not that bad, but it's when it becomes a big thing. I'm trying to find the exact
like study or something like that.
No, well, I mean, it will be in studies, but it's basically breaks down to how many times a week that you're doing it. So just in case anyone's listening to this, because obviously sometimes you're like, oh no, like I fasted yesterday because I had a pizza. It's not bad if you're doing it once, it makes sense. Obviously you're just reducing your energy intake, but over the long term, it can get into such a negative thing. And it's the pressure of sort of looking a certain way. In fact, it's on them, like, male ideals in the media. So just how the body image has just generally changed over time. And looking at it, obviously I can't share this on the screen here, but from 1980s, it was just like a normal sort of leanish guy. And as it progressed through the years, the guy is now in like 2015, the image here, he's like shredded, he's muscular at the same time. He's obviously like on some gear, he's not on gear. And he's like, this is the sort of like, I'm a guy growing up now in this modern age, this is how I'm supposed to look. And unless you've got really amazing genetics, you're not just going to be shredded and have huge amounts of muscle. And even if you are and you don't have the greatest genetics, either way, it's going to take quite some time to get there, really. If you're doing it naturally, it's going to take some time to get there. And then again, that can lead into these intensifications where you go crazy diets because I need to get shredded, and oh no, I'm not big enough. So, and then you end up going into bulk, and then you go super bulk and you get too fat, and then it's like you're going back and forwards, you spin your wheels, and then people are then jumping onto like gear and stuff like that to look a bit better, and it's like it gets really crazy. It gets absolutely crazy. I'm trying to find it. I'm not too sure.
All right. If you find it, I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll leave the link in the show notes so people can have a look at it if they're interested in kind of looking more. I'll just send me the link over at the end of the podcast. I'll leave it down below. We can't do the old Joe Rogan, put it on screen.
I know.
We haven't got that. I'm not at that stage yet. One day maybe I'll have my little assistant.
That'd be so good. What's that guy called? He's like, hey, what's he called?
Rob? Oh, I can't remember. I listened to a Joe Rogan this morning as well.
Is it Jay?
Oh, I can't remember.
Jamie.
Never mind.
Jamie?
Might be Jamie.
Jamie,
Yeah,
yeah,
might
something
be.
like that. Basically, I was just looking for. I was trying to find the. It's the number of times, so the amount of like binge purges that you do in a week. So if you're doing like one or twice a week, it's not that bad. But if it's happening multiple times a week, so and it doesn't have to be going to the toilet and throwing up. Like obviously, that's a definite sign. Even if you're doing that once or twice, I think, in my opinion, that's obviously quite bad. Where you're throwing up to counteract the food that you've eaten, like purposely doing that. But if it's like these things where you don't think it is, because most people who go to the gym will do that. Like you eat a lot of food and you sort of counteract that with doing excessive exercise. If you're doing that multiple times, again, I was trying to find the exact amount of times, because then it is technically you get diagnosed as like having bulimia. And personally, at times, not all the time, but like at times on some strict diets, like I would have been like up there. And I know a close friend of mine who's a personal trainer as well. We actually bonded over like an eating disorder, which is a bit weird, because we had the similar sort of thing. It's so strange, but and I didn't realize at the time as well. That's how we started talking. Like, oh yeah, I'm binging, then we're having this, and then we just sort of got into that sort of into that conversation. Then I really, but doing like the last year uni, got into this course on this module specifically, and then I saw it, and I was like, wow, like at that time, at that moment in time there, for that specific month or whatever, or 2 months, it was like painting a picture. I was sitting watching the lecture, and I was just sitting there, like I was getting like really sort of emotional, to be honest, because it was touching like such a chord. It was like really. This was bang on me. Like this is what it was doing, and it's basically just getting into like a mental sort of issue, a mental disorder. I mean, it's very light. It's not like crazy, but it can lead it to really bad. It can progress. It can progress into more detrimental sort of like negative things like depression, again, anxiety, like social situations. Like if you don't like the way you look, I mean, you're not going to be going places. Like I had when I was younger, I'd sort of broke out of that, but because of the excessive diet and then what that can lead into, these mild like sort of bulimia tendencies can then end up bringing resurfacing those issues again. And it's really, I'm on 20% low battery there. What's going on?
If you need to plug in, mate, we can.
I'm gonna have to plug in, I think. But yeah, it's it's crazy. It can sort of resurface those sort of like insecurities in yourself when really, objectively, you shouldn't have them. Like say, like I know you want to get shredded, but like nobody looking at you would be like, oh, you need to lose weight, or anyone looking at me would be like, what, you're fine. I mean, you know, you don't need to lose weight, and be like, no, I'm not good enough. I need to get leaner. I need to get shredded, and then it's these thoughts that sort of like that push you on that sort of that journey. But yeah, I'll try and send it over to you if I find it, because there's a specific number of times, and then you basically would be diagnosed as that. And I think it's so prevalent. Like I say, I know of a few people, even a bodybuilder, obviously I'm not naming anybody's names, but he was on like a really strict diet which his coach had given, and he was waking up in the morning, 2 a.m, and he was going to Tesco and eating everything in sight, obviously 24-hour Tesco, and he was like going in, and obviously it never affected him because he was on such low calories. He was shredded, and you know what I mean, on X, Y, and Z. So it basically, like, it was almost like a secret carb, of which his coach didn't really know about it. But like this is what these diets do to people, really. I mean, you're fighting against your physiological sort of responses to like want to keep you alive. And couple that in with mental, like psychological feelings of being restricted, and can be quite a negative thing. But yeah,
crazy.
I'll try and find it for you and send it.
No worries, we'll send it over after. I was going to say, when you talk about this, I'm kind of thinking in my head, you could probably put together like a timeline of like a PT, for example, like getting, so for you, for example, you kind of started because you were overweight. For me, I started because it was the kind of the other way around. I was really skinny, tall, like I'm 6'6". I was always tall when I was younger. So I started to kind of build the muscle and trying to put on a little bit of weight. Like I think when I was 16, I was probably like 72 kilograms, and I was 6'2" or 6'3" at the time. Now I'm like, 6'6", I'm like probably 95ish. So I'm still not ridiculously heavy, but that was the reason I got into it. And then you're obviously up the other end. you can probably
Yeah.
put together, like you get into it, you kind of get into a bit of habits, you start getting into a routine of training, you're not so fixated on the extremes yet. Then you get to a certain point where you start getting addicted to it. Maybe you get to a point where you're at a nice kind of weight you're happy with, and then you start looking into a little bit more detail about your bodybuilding, about what can I do with nutrition, and then you get to like the dieting phase where you can go to the extremes of like ridiculously low body fat, and then you go for them yo-yo dieting. Like I probably went to the same sort of thing. I started fell over. But,
We had technical issues.
technical issues, but yeah, like I got to the point where I was kind of, I obviously had a little bit more muscle on us, and now I wanted to get lean, like ridiculously lean, and that's when the yo-yo dieting comes, and then you come on the outside of it, and then you have a look back and reflect on it, and think, like that was, you don't realize until you're out of it, like wow, that was crazy what I'd done there. There was a lot of issues and stuff, and then hopefully trying to find that healthy kind of balance. But there's a lot of people going through that same sort of transition, depending on what stage you're at, whether it's they want to get down to this like a normal healthy level, or they want to try and put in a little bit of muscle. Then it gets to like the serious stage when I want to take it to a level too far. And I think like taking advice from people who have kind of been through that, like yourself, and I've been through a similar thing, like who know what it's like to be at the severe kind of like spectrum, whether it be the crazy weight loss or crazy weight gain. Like there's two different sides to it. Talking to someone about that in kind of these conversations, and talking to people at the gym, personal trainers or whoever the experts are about this, when you're kind of at that stage, it's probably going to be like the best thing you can possibly do, because that's what we're here to kind of stop you from making the mistakes that we made, so you can obviously just skip that step and hopefully be at a healthy level. But at the same time, you don't realize what you're going through until you've come out of it, like reflecting back at it. Are we all right for you? Are you plugged in and all charged now?
Yeah, I'm plugged in. I've turned the phone. The reason I'm on my phone is because, I mean, it's a better camera anyway, but then I've just got my computer in front of it, so just in case, like when we're talking about a few things, I don't know, I've jotted a couple of notes down. I don't know, may not need them, to be fair. I just wasn't sure, obviously, who knows, and maybe my mind goes blank and I'm like, highlighting stuff, plant foods eaten over the course of a day.
Be fine, man, be fine. Anyway, I was going to say, we'll jump into one of the main topics I wanted to talk about. Obviously, we've talked about your kind of fat loss, weight loss journey. You studied nutrition, obviously. Was it Newcastle or Northumbria? I can't remember which one it was.
Newcastle, yeah.
Newcastle Uni.
Yeah.
So, obviously, you're a vegan. I wanted to talk about... I know, we already said that. But I want to talk about, first of all, like, how did it kind of start for you in terms of the interest in looking into it and obviously adapting to the vegan diet? How did it start for you?
So for me, it was basically, it was for like ethical reasons or moral reasons. I started looking into more that side of it. So it wasn't for health reasons at all, which again, really great health benefits. It wasn't for environmental reasons, which again, really great environmental things associated with it. But it was mainly for just generally, just for moral reasons. Just like I looked at what was happening to these animals. I don't know, I could get a lot of empathy for the animals and the situation that they were in. Like if you look at industrialized farming, you watch videos, like even not the horror story videos, which there are some, and it's disgusting that you watch them and you're just like, wow, that's really upsetting. Even the stuff that's not, I mean, the industrialized farming is really, really bad. And these animals are born into the world just for that reason. So that's their experience of life. Do you know what I mean? We all have an experience of life where we come into the world, we're looking through these eyes and we're sort of like, okay, what's going on? And that's their experience. Obviously the consciousness, it's not as high as humans. So you've got, obviously you can like debate that, but they're still conscious enough to understand things like pain and love. I mean, you chase an animal, it's going to run away out of fear. It's scared. Like those basic, like sort of rudimentary, like emotions, like every living animal has. So I started really just recognizing that, and got to the point where I was like, wow, I don't feel comfortable eating meat, because I wouldn't. Given the choice, I wouldn't kill this animal because I don't need to. I know I don't need to. Like if I needed to, like fair enough. If I'm like lost in the wild, like I'm sorry, animal, I need to try and keep myself alive. Like that's just the way it is. But like I don't actually need to. So then understanding that I don't need to do it to stay alive, and then seeing that these animals obviously don't have a great life at all, and they feel fear and pain, and they're taken away from the mother. So all these like deep sort of emotions which they would feel, which we just can't understand yet, because it's, you know, we're just starting to understand like that sort of level of like consciousness and like the emotions of other animals. Like we now know that pigs are like really intelligent, and they're about similar sort of consciousness as like 2-3-year-old children, or at least smart enough like where they can beat 2-3-year-old children at like tasks, which is quite crazy, because, you know, a 3-year-old, they're not exactly, you know, can't sit and have a great conversation with them, but if you put that consciousness into an animal and you treat that animal badly, I mean, you would feel really bad about that. So then I started just linking that together, and that's what it was for me. It was just understanding that these animals are, I mean, they use the term sentient beings. Basically, I don't use that term, but I just basically, it's like everything's consciousness. There's different levels of consciousness in different animals. Humans being technically maybe the highest consciousness. And even if these animals aren't as low consciousness or as high consciousness as us, does it mean that they're just like, oh, well, stuff it, like I'll kill it and I'll breed it into this life just to eat it? Because it like I say, it's not necessary. Like, I haven't eaten meat in 3 years, and I'm still alive and kicking. Obviously there's some nutritional things which I'll talk about as well, but it's not a necessity. So that I started really feeling guilty. That's what I started feeling, because I was like, I wouldn't actually eat these animals. I wouldn't kill these animals because I know I don't need to. So then by eating meat, and I'm sitting there and I felt like a hypocrite because I didn't agree with it at all. So then by sitting eating it, then I'm like, well, I'm a hypocrite if I don't agree with the way that these animals are being brought up and killed, reared up and like they're killed just for the purpose of meat. Then how can I sit and eat like the meat from that? So it was quite a profound thing when I discovered it, because obviously it is a discovery, because you don't grow up with that knowledge. It's, you buy meat, it's, well, you just have to eat meat. You grow up, right, you've got to eat meat, that's on your plate, you base your meal around meat, so you need to get your protein. And it's like, you don't ever see that. Like, nobody goes into an abattoir really when they're a kid. You don't see that sort of stuff. You just go to McDonald's and you're eating a burger, and you just grow up and you think, oh, well, yeah, like these certain animals like pigs, chickens, cows, these are just like, yeah, you just eat them. Like, oh, you see them in the field, like, oh, they're nice, I like them animals, but then you go home and then you'll eat them. So it's a weird, it's a strange thing. And then you see, like, obviously everyone has dogs and like cats and their pets, and you would never eat those. Like, you would never eat those. Like, but it's that's more of a perspective thing, really. Like the consciousness, like the emotions that a dog and a cat will sort of have, and the guilt you'd feel towards them, I started associating that with all animals, really, because I started to think, like, there's no real difference. It's just the consciousness is there, but it's like the suit, the casing is different, if that makes sense. So the same consciousness like we have, where we're sort of alive and we look down, we're like, okay, well, I've got this body, fair enough, I'll just do what I have to do with it. Like, these animals are in the same thing. So I think the baseline consciousness is there, just the same as in a dog or in a cat or in a pig. It's all pretty similar in my eyes. So then I was like, right, I need to stop. And it come to the point where I was eating like a chicken thigh. It was from Morrison's hot food counter. I used to live off them, and I would obviously eat so much meat. And I was eating this chicken thigh, and it had the skin on, and then I looked at the skin, and it had like a hair sticking out of it, and I had like the goosebumps, like not the goosebumps, but you know what I mean, like the pimple sort of things on it. And I just looked at it, and for the first time in my entire life, I looked at it as objectively what it was. It wasn't just food, it wasn't just chicken to eat. It was like, that's part of an animal's leg. And I was just like, I don't know. Like, you know, when you look at those things, the perspective things, where you look at it and then all of a sudden you see the face or the picture, it was like that. It was just like click, and I was just like, whoa. That was really profound. So I was just like, I put it back in the bag, and I was like, right. And I never ate meat. I've never eaten meat since then. So it was, for me, I went cold turkey, no pun intended. I just went fully, just at one night I was eating meat, next night never eat meat again. For them reasons, because I think for me it was easier, because I had them strong sort of emotional and like ethical reasons. I think it's a lot easier to go plant-based when you have those reasons. Otherwise, it probably wouldn't have happened. There would have been a lot slower progression into it anyway.
Yeah. So that's one of the arguments with the vegan thing. Well, one of the reasons I can't argue with people for going vegan is the kind of ethical side of it, because I can completely understand it. Like, I understand it myself. I think I mentioned to you about the David Attenborough documentary. It was kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to try it out, because it was a big thing. Like, it makes you think about it a lot more in depth, rather than like I said, like in the past, I've just kind of had like food on my plate. Like, you go to Nando's, have a chicken breast. Your parents make you Sunday dinner, whatever it is. You just have your food and you eat. You don't think about it in detail, but when you do, and you're actually looking at this piece of meat and you're thinking, right, what's actually happened for this piece of meat to get on my plate? Like, and then you think, go into that detail. And it also goes back to societal norms. Like, we've been brought up eating meat. It's the same thing with like people who quit alcohol, or people who, I don't know, like stop drinking coffee kind of thing. Like, everyone looks at them thinking like, they're weird. Like why are they doing that? This is what everyone else like alcohol and like veganism are kind of the same sort of thing, in the sense that like most people eat meat, most people drink alcohol. If you don't do that, you're kind of a weirdo in a sense, which I think is why people vegans get judged for it, which I don't think they should at all. Obviously, there's people who take it really, really seriously and go down like ridiculous routes and stuff. And but I think there's an argument for going down that route as well, like in terms of like not having leather in your car. Are you do you take it that seriously, that you wouldn't wear leather jackets and all that sort of stuff?
There's different like sort of like, if you're vegan, you're basically, the terminology for like a vegan, or the specific, well, I don't know the specific, like I don't have it in front of us, but basically you don't use any animal products. So you will not have anything, like you wouldn't just not eat meat. So if you don't eat meat or animal products, then you're plant-based. So that's plant-based diet. So that's a different thing. Well, it's not, it's the same, but slightly different. If you're like vegan, you won't use any animal products whatsoever. So it wouldn't be like leather. You would be staying away from like anything, even if it was like sort of like animal testing, like, you know, for your deodorants, or like hair products, which I think most people agree with. I don't think many people will be like, oh God, I don't care. Well, I mean, some people probably say they don't care about that, but I think a lot more people would be actually, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I don't want to use shampoo that's been tested on like sticking it in rabbits' eyes and stuff. You see the photos and like the videos of that sort of stuff, and it's really, really bad. So it is, that's the vegan thing. So yeah, I would say I'm fully vegan. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm like 100% perfect. You can never be sort of perfect with it, but I wouldn't go out and buy like leather shoes. Or if I was like going to get a couch, or like I wouldn't be getting like a full leather couch or anything, because again, it goes back to that. I mean, there's some animals, say for leather, there is animals that are like brought into the world specifically for leather. Like, it doesn't just come as a byproduct a lot of the times, because a lot of the animals in, say, the conventional farm, and like they're not treated amazingly. The skin is not great. Like, they've got cuts and scrapes and all that sort of stuff. So that's not profitable. So like, you want a nice leather couch or something, it's going to have to be brought in for that reason. So it's, yeah, I just don't like to use any animal products that have any. I don't want to use animals for profit. That's the biggest thing. So any type of like, any company or anyone that is sort of making profit out of bringing animals into the world, like to kill them, to use them like as a product, I wouldn't. I'll stay away from, because of morals and like the ethical side of it, where I don't agree with it, because you don't need it. You don't need like fake leather, although it's like, oh, fake leather, but there's really good quality ones, especially nowadays. And as things progress on, it's going to be good. I think they make it out of pineapple and all sorts of stuff now. So it's like, if you want that, then fair enough, but you don't really need leather. I mean, it's not like, I think back in like history, like that was fair enough. You'd want to maybe wear an animal hide because it's logical. You're out there and you're going to be out. You look at, say, an animal, you say like a cow or whatever, and you're like, well, he doesn't wear clothes. Well, what's he got on? Well, he's got his skin on. Well, I'm going to use his skin and make clothes for myself, and then I'll be like extra warm. It's logical, but then it gets to the point where you don't need that anymore. It's not necessary. So it's down to necessity. I think that's the biggest thing about like understanding it from my point of view. It's the necessity of it. If it's not necessary to do it, which it's not nowadays because we're so advanced, we don't need to be doing that sort of stuff. So then it's almost like cruel in my eyes when it's not necessary.
So yeah, no, completely get you. But I think in terms of it's bad that there's so many industries out there that are literally just profiting from animals. Like you said, it's not necessary whatsoever. And I think the reason why it's a societal norm now to eat meat, have leather sofas, leather jackets and stuff is because there's an
Just
industry
normal.
out there. And obviously, if a certain industry is making loads of money, it's going to be funded. Like the government are going to want that. They're wanting the money for taxes and stuff. It's all kind of a big spiral.
100%.
Which is kind of sad that the world's all based around money, but unfortunately it is. But you're making me feel bad. I'm gonna tell my missus to take back our leather sofa for our new house. I've just thought about
I
it. She
know,
wants to get leather.
sorry.
I've always been a fabric. I like fabric things. She wanted a leather
Yeah.
one. I'm like, I'm gonna have a word with her now. I'm saying
But
that
it's
I'm refusing.
like that's, you know what I mean? Like I've sat, like leather couches are nice, you know, but you can get like faux leather or something, and it's again, it's to do with like necessity. It's not necessary to, especially if there's good alternatives. The only negative thing, people would be like, oh well, I don't want fake. Everyone's gonna think, oh, look at him with these fake leather couch, and it's like, well, who cares? Do you know what I mean? Like, why do you want leather? Like, why do you want to sit and relax on like a stretched out bit of animal skin? Like, that's a little bit weird. I'd rather just sort of chill on like some fabric. Like, I think we sort of get a bit like, it's the perception of it where you sort of think, well, that's normal, I want it. But really, when you look into it deeply about like where it's come from and what it actually is, then it starts to get a little bit, oh, this is a little bit strange. Actually, this is not what I thought it was. Like I said, the perception of, say, eating meat where you wouldn't eat your dog, but yet in China and Thailand they eat dogs all the time. And if you as a westernized person look at what happens to the dogs over there, and look at basically the exact same situations that chickens and pigs are sort of brought up, they're in the same farming situations there, and you look at these, and because it's normal to have a dog or whatever, a cat as a pet, you would look at that and you're horrified. But they think it's normal. To them, it's the norm. It's a societal norm to eat that. So then they're sort of like, well, whatever, who cares? To them, it's just a pig. It's who cares? You know? But to us, it's like, whoa, that's crazy. Like, obviously, you've got Hindus. They don't eat cows, so they may see like some part of our culture when we're eating burgers every day, like, wow, that's really bad. I don't like that. It's more to do with perception, I think. And once you start to like get a different perspective on different ways that things are brought about, like, so where your animals like come from, or why you're eating animals for in the first place, is it just because it's the norm, or is it because like you actually need to? And I don't think you need to at all. And that's probably what we'll get onto in terms of the nutrition side of it. Like, you don't, but
yeah, no, I can't argue with the ethical side of it 100%. Can't say anything about it. Obviously, we've just discussed that, but we want to get into the more nutritional side in terms of performance, what you're missing if you don't have meat, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. So I want to, first of all, what was it like when you first made the transition? Did you see anything at all, any difference in your body, or did you find it difficult to start with the, obviously, the all hitting your calories, hitting your protein, blah, blah, blah? What was it like when you first started?
When I first started, it was fine. I didn't find it a struggle at all. Basically, like I said, for the moral, ethical side of it, I didn't miss meat. I didn't want to eat it. I think if I went into it, I'm going to be helpful. Like, say you went for health reasons, which a lot of people start for that reason, that it may be harder. And then you might end up like doing a cheat day, but it's like meat or something like that. But for me, it wasn't that hard to do it, because it was a strong emotional sort of thing, which got us into it really. And then in terms of what I noticed, like, I've always been crazy bad with like spots, like acne was terrible. I used to have cysts, like just so bad. And that was the only thing that I noticed really, in terms of like what happened to is like basically over a course of like a bit of time, those went away to the point where I basically got like hardly like anything, if anything at all, when I used to have crazy big red cysts and, you know, like just really like gnarly sort of like sort of acne. And that seems to be a common thing really. And I don't know if it was cutting out the dairy or cutting out the meat. It's hard to say, because I didn't do it as an experiment for that reason. I know this guy, Brian Turner, I think he's on YouTube, and he's like a vegan bodybuilder. He's like good shape and he does that sort of thing. He had crazy bad acne, like all over his face, basically exactly what I had around my neck, but all over his face. It was so bad. And he found out for him it was dairy specifically. So I don't know, it may have been dairy, I can't tell, but that it hugely made a difference on on that, especially in certain areas of my body. I mean, I still do. I think just for whatever reason, I do get it a little bit on my back of my shoulders a little bit now and again. But I've had this literally since I was like 18. It pops up, it flares up sort of now and again. But I did see a huge difference in that. So that was the only thing I really saw a difference in. And then cardiovascular fitness, I don't know. I don't know if subjectively, maybe not. I do feel like I have had sort of better blood flow and cardiovascular fitness, which does seem to be a thing, like in studies where vegans, they do tend to have slightly better blood flow, and it's more likely due to the high nitrate diet. So you have more vegetables. Vegetables are rich in nitrate. Like the nitrate rich food like creates nitric oxide, which dilates the blood vessels, so you get vasodilation. So you've got essentially, you're getting increased blood flow, so you're going to potentially sort of like perform a little bit better at cardiovascular work. So I would say maybe my cardio has got better, but again, I wouldn't want to be like, yeah, it definitely has, because there's no way of really testing that. I mean, if you could do it when you could test it, that would be great, but I wouldn't really want to say yeah. But the only thing I've genuinely noticed was acne, like really substantially cleared up, 100%.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I done the 1 week properly vegan, which is I'll put that little link in the YouTube videos in the show notes. But that was one thing that I noticed definitely for me, just from the one week that I'd done, was my recovery. And I think it could be down to inflammation. Obviously there's links with
100%,
with obviously dairy and inflammation and stuff like that, and then obviously some things with meat, especially red meat, with inflammation. I noticed, like I said to you, I don't know if I just had a really good week. I mentioned it in the video. I don't know if I just had a really good week, but I noticed that I wasn't really as stiff and sore in the morning. Normally I find when I do like some mobility stuff in the morning, I'm really stiff and achy and stuff. I didn't really find that for that week that I was really strict with it. Again, it could be down to me having a lot more plant-based stuff, which have got a lot of antioxidants in, with helping with my recovery. Could be down to a number of factors, which is why you said to me to try and do it for at least like a month to try and see what.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah,
that was when you would try and properly see a difference, which I should really try and do, to be fair. But that was one of the big things that I definitely noticed. But there's obviously loads of different things we can go into in terms of. First thing I wanted to mention was about the amino acid quality, because that's a big kind of argument in terms of the protein content, especially leucine and stuff, and having to kind of mix and max plant-based sources for your protein. What's your thoughts on that whole little argument?
So, like, in terms of protein quality, like as a whole, like animal protein does have higher amino acid content, and it is like more bioavailable. But it's not nothing to the point where it's crazily different. Like, you can basically, as a vegan, there's no like as if you put like who wins the first place, like a steak or like soybeans, the steak will win in terms of amino acids, like 100%. Not going to be trying to say that's different, because that would just be silly. But it's not as bad as you may think. Like, you can still get enough protein as a vegan. The whole thing about veganism, it's like it doesn't have it's basically it lacks amino acids. So like some of the amino acids aren't there, which isn't true. But because there's all amino acids are in all foods. So all plant foods have all your sort of 9 essential amino acids, but you've got limiting amino acids. So typically, like your methionine and your lysine, these are sort of like typically like lower. So like you would eat some beans, it's probably going to be lower in methionine and lysine. So they're the sort of things to focus on, specifically lysine, really, because loads of foods like oats and things like that have high methionine in them. So you wouldn't really end up being low on methionine. But if you are just eating, say, I just want to eat beans by itself, then you probably would want to be adding in some other foods. So then that gets into your sort of complementary proteins. But then looking into that, it's really debated whether or not you do need like to be eating these complementary proteins. So like if I'm having beans, I've got to have rice with it. Otherwise, I'm going to be deficient in amino acids. It doesn't really work like that. It's still ongoing debate. But there was, I think it was the American Dietetic Association. They said in 2009, so we have to read the course of plant foods eaten over the course of a day can provide all essential amino acids and ensure adequate nitrogen retention and use in healthy adults. Thus, complementary proteins do not need to be consumed at the same meal. So you don't actually need to you don't have to worry like, oh no, am I getting all this in? As long as you're eating a good balanced diet, and you're not like overly restrictive, and you're getting a good amount of legumes, whether that be sort of lentils, like beans, soy products, or something like that, then you're going to be getting that. As long as you're having like, it's like rice, so you're having any type of grains, which are going to be typically getting your methionine and things like that in it. So you don't have to worry about it in one specific meal, as long as you're eating a good sort of balanced diet, really. Yeah.
I was going to
So
say about the, sorry, what are you going to say there?
no. Sorry, go on.
No, just about the, we talked about it obviously at Nuffield when we were still not in lockdown. Now it feels like ages ago. It was only a week ago. But still not in lockdown.
Yeah.
We talked about the leucine content in terms of amino acids and having to try and hit it every so often, obviously to get your protein synthesis. Was it like 4 grams of leucine every like 4 to 5 hours or something like that you were saying?
Well, I've seen this one here at like 1 to 3 grams of leucine stimulates muscle protein synthesis. We can help promote positive nitrogen balance. So that's 20 to 40 grams. So there's like, to get that, you would be able to get that. Again, you'd probably like overall, like think of it like, you're going to have to eat maybe a little bit more protein. So that is recommended overall. So you would probably end up eating a little bit more, because the digestibility factors, you've got like the protein digestive corrected amino acid score. It's a big long-winded thing, but it scores amino acids or proteins in terms of like out of 1 or like down to like 0. And that'll sort of give you the estimation of what the quality of the protein is, because there is quality issues to do with protein. But overall, like say your leucine, for example, we're talking about that. Like you've got stuff like, if you want a huge amount, so like half a cup, which is about 64 gram of tempeh. It's like a fermented soy product, has got like 1,100. So it's basically got like 1.1 gram of leucine in that. That's only 64 grams. So typically you would have a bit more than that. As long as you're getting like 20 to 40 gram, maybe higher towards the 40 gram with a vegan sort of like diet, especially if you're bodybuilding. If you're a general person, like a person for general health, you don't have to worry about the protein at all. Just go for, instead of your 0.75 or 0.8 gram per kilogram, maybe push up to that 1 gram per kilogram, just to sort of offset maybe that digestibility factor. For like athletes and things like that, you may want to be pushing just a little bit higher. So maybe between that 20-40 gram for like your maximum muscle protein synthesis, maybe up towards more of your 40 gram. But again, the study's shown, there's like the typical, the beef patty study. Again, I don't have it up in front of us because I was trying to get a lot of info on there. But basically, there's a study which you can find online. So they've done a 1 beef patty or 2 beef patties. It was like, I think it was about 120 grams of beef, and they measured the muscle protein synthesis off that. So it was either 1 beef patty and 2 beef patty to see what the difference was on that. And there was very little difference in terms of the muscle protein synthesis from having that extra beef patty. So again, as long as you're getting the amino acids in there, having crazy huge amounts of amino acids is not really going to be that beneficial in that term. As long as you're aiming to get a good source of protein in, 1 to 3 grams seems to be better. Again, opting for the higher amount just to maximize things, really. It just depends on what your purpose is. If you're a general person, don't worry about protein. If you're an athlete, opt for about 1.8 grams per kilograms of body weight, which has been recommended for athletes, for vegetarian and vegan athletes. And again, just have a little look. Like if you're an athlete, you need to look into your diet. You need to know what you're doing anyway. But if you're a vegan athlete, maybe look into sort of the foods which are slightly higher in leucine, and just ensure that you're getting the maximum in. I would say if you're an athlete, focusing on those complementary proteins, although it's not necessarily, it hasn't been shown to be needed, which I don't think it is, but for like the most effective, like just covering all bases, it'd probably be better to sort of make sure that you're getting like your full and 9 essential amino acids in that in that meal. I would recommend that, but you can definitely hit your protein needs and your leucine needs.
I was going to say I was aiming for about 2 grams of protein per kilogram. So I was like, what, 95 kilograms? I'm aiming for that 100. I aim for that 190 gram mark roughly. Anyway, some people say obviously the 2 gram per pound was it times your body weight in pounds. Sorry, so that'll be like, what's that, 95 220 maybe pounds. I don't know. I'm not very good at converting. But yeah, for people
Yeah.
who get confused as well, when we say like per meal, like 40 grams of protein, we don't mean 40 grams of chicken or 40 grams of tempeh, whatever it is. We mean
No,
obviously
no.
the quite. So that would be probably like 40 grams of protein in a chicken breast, probably like, I don't know, 150, 200 grams of chicken for tempeh. Obviously, I don't know what, like maybe a little bit more, 250 grams of tempeh,
It's
something like that.
about 19, 20 grams of protein per 100 gram.
Oh, that's
So that's
decent.
one of the highest sources. It's one of the highest sources. Obviously, once you've got like a scale of plant proteins, essentially, so you've got like seitan, which is a weird name, like wheat gluten, basically. Obviously, if you're celiac, don't have that because that's not going to be good for you. It's basically the extracted, it's just the protein extracted out of bread. That has got one of the highest amino acid profiles. So that's typically used in like mock meats and stuff like that. Really, really good amino acid score and really, really good for building muscle. Then more of your natural, which I prefer to go for more like quote unquote natural, like whole foods, like plant-based foods. Then you've got like your tempeh, which is going to be probably the best one. And then it's coming down into like things like other type of soy products. And then as you get lower down the scale, it's like you've got your edamame beans and like your chickpeas and stuff like that. Again, because of the high amounts of fiber, it's going to be restricting the amount of amino acids that you get in there. So there's benefits of having that. So of the fiber, but yeah, if you're going for like legumes and your things like lentils, because of the fiber will limit some of it. So don't expect if it says, okay, I'm getting 20 gram of protein from like this amount of black beans, you're probably going to get slightly less than that. So I think that the digestibility factor for stuff like that is about 0.85. So you might get about 85% roughly. Of the proteins from that. Yeah.
So main thing, if you're taking if you want to go full vegan and you take your training seriously, you're an athlete or you're serious into building muscle, bodybuilding, whatever sport it is, the main thing is probably look into it a little bit more. Look at the protein that you're having, making sure you're getting a good amount of amino acids in, hitting at least that 1.8 grams per kilogram of body weight of protein per day, and then if not a little bit more if you're really into like resistance training and stuff. And also again, that kind of can fluctuate depending on what stage of if you're like for bodybuilding perspective, bulking or cutting. Like you mentioned, obviously, if you're having higher carbohydrates when you're bulking, there's a less kind of need for protein. I can't remember how you explained it well to me the other day.
It was like it's like muscle sparing. So the reason why you may lose muscle specifically, say if you're just generally, is because it's like gluconeogenesis. So it's like your body will start breaking down amino acids, and it'll sort of get rid of the amino group, and you'd use the carboxylic group. And you would put that through the TCA cycle, and you would produce energy from it. So it's like anaerobic respiration. So your body may need that now and again, but if you've got a high amount of glucose, your body's not going to need to be doing that. So if you're eating like a regular amount of carbohydrates and your insulin level is pretty high, I think there's even studies showing that even just carbohydrates will reduce muscle protein breakdown, which is a good thing. So without even any carbs, just getting your insulin up from the carbohydrates will reduce that. And it's typically because amino acids are constantly being broken down. It's like a constant thing. It's like a wall that's being built. Imagine that wall is constantly needing to be repaired all of the time. So your body's using the amino acids that you bring you. This brick's been in there for like, a month or two. We need to sort of change that brick, and it's constantly being changed all of the time. So that's why you need that irregular sort of amount of amino acids to maintain your nitrogen balance. Once you get below your nitrogen balance, then you're going to be losing proteins from your body. But because of, say, in some instances, you will get into a place, especially if you're dieting hard and you're going into low calories and you're going into low carbohydrates, you would probably end up more likely, you could break down more muscle tissue from that. So that's why studies will be like, right, have more protein, 2 grams, 2.4. I've seen even some studies saying up to like 2.7 grams of protein. And that's just to ensure that you have enough amino acids to sort of offset that protein breakdown. But having high carbs in your diet, that's why you can bring your carbs down. Once you, like, say, if you're at maintenance or you're in a bulk phase, you don't need to be having 2.5 grams per kilogram or some people like use it in pounds, like having like 300 gram of protein or something. It's like there's no need to have that that much protein, especially if you're like in a sort of calorie surplus, because it's just wasted protein. There potentially could be negative effects of having high protein, but again, that's sort of still debatable, like sort of renal issues, like so it's things like for your kidneys, and there's still some things up in to debate in terms of like high protein and acidity in the blood, and then that potentially leaching calcium from the bones to sort of neutralize the pH in your body. Again, I'm not saying 100% that's true, but there is some factors about that. So you don't need that high amount of that much protein, really.
Yeah, it's probably more risk than reward than anything if you're going to go that higher protein.
Yeah,
like once you're getting above that kind of 2.2 grams per kilogram of protein, you're probably just wasting your calories, really.
Well, you're wasting calories, and you're wasting you're just wasting calories. Like that beef patty study, I wish I should have had like the exact name of the study so people could go and look at it, but you will be able to find it. And it's shown that you could have like one beef patty if someone's having a burger for like post workout or whatever. Like having that extra bit of protein is not really that beneficial for your muscle protein synthesis. So it's like, even like depending on what you're getting into it for, even from like a complete like sustainability point of view, which we'll talk about later in terms of that, like why do you need to eat that extra bit of like protein? Like you don't need that. I think people just eat way too much protein. I think that's the thing, because obviously you need your protein to build muscle. So then everyone's like, well, I'm just going to make sure I eat loads and loads of protein, which is fair enough. Like it doesn't mean that you're going to be unhealthy from it, but it's not really, it may not be beneficial at the same time. So then you're just going to be just basically paying it out. You're not going to be making any use of it. Yeah. And I think it's that's what gets confusing for people with plant-based dieting, where you think, oh no, like my protein's going to be an issue because I need to be hitting these crazy high protein targets, which unless you're like a very, very active person, then yeah. But your body is pretty smart in what it does with its amino acids. And because we're talking about carbohydrates specifically, like the vegan diet is really high in carbs, which you'll have noticed yourself. So it's going to be, the amount of like gluconeogenesis going on is not going to be as much as, say, if you were doing like a really low carb diet, because there's quite a lot of carbs there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say, talking about carbs, the one thing that I found was I was hitting like 100 grams of fiber a day, and I was getting quite like, that was one thing I mentioned to you, like, I think if I was to go and like cut or try and lose weight, a vegan diet's probably a good way because you're getting that much fiber in fruit and veg. I wasn't really as hungry.
Yeah,
that was one thing. I think if I stuck to it long term, I'd probably end up losing a bit of body fat for it, just got to be in a deficit for that amount of time. Is that something that you find yourself in terms of fiber? Have you kind of found a way to manage it? And is it going to have that much of an effect on, like you mentioned about my protein intake, with having such a higher amount of fiber?
So I mean, some types of like fiber, I mean, it'll reduce your appetite hugely, because it'll sort of, you've got your soluble fiber, which will go into like a gel almost, and it'll slow the rate of some absorption, things like that, which has been some sort of issues, like maybe does it like inhibit the absorption of some micronutrients and things like that, but mainly it's going to make you feel fuller for longer. So you've got like physiological responses, like if you've had a lot of fiber, it's slowing down the digestive tract, you're going to have more satiety, so you're going to be less likely to overeat. I think the big thing getting into the fiber is really beneficial for your gut microbiome, so you definitely need that fiber. Like typically people have way too little fiber in their diet, but for general health, you need to be increasing your fiber intake. I think when you first go vegan, you end up having, it's like a shock to the system, because you end up having way too much fiber. So it's easing in, so slowly building up your fiber intake. So just small amounts of beans and lentils, and going up into larger portions. Otherwise, you could get a little bit gassy because your body's not used to having that amount of fiber. So you've got it's the diversity of the gut microbiome. So there's different types of like fibers in there. So the different types of fibers going to need different types of bacteria are going to basically be breaking those down. So the more diversity of fiber you're going to be putting through the digestive tract, the more diversity of gut microbiome, gut bacteria specifically, that you need. So you've got to let your body sort of catch up to that. So you've got to get that diversity. That's why I was thinking it was going to be good for you, because like you do fasting and that's been shown to increase the diversity of the gut microbiome. So that's why I was going to ask like you, like how did you feel with like that side of things? Did you find, were you really bloated or anything like that?
A little bit later on in the day, a little bit, because knowing me, I always forget to eat my calories. So I always, normally if I'm doing my fasting, obviously I'm not religiously fasting. There's days where I eat early, there's days that I do it, and I push it a little bit longer. But say I eat at like 12 o'clock, for example, I would normally eat at 12 o'clock, maybe train at like 1:30, 2 o'clock. And then I'll not eat until what's that, like 4, 4:30. And then I always end up having just like squeezing extra like meals quite close together later on at night, which I know probably isn't ideal for digestion and stuff like that. And that was probably the time where I started feeling a little bit more gassy. And like, for example, I had like a chickpea stew, and then like checking what else I had. It was like a lentil curry thing. So I'd had them probably only like an hour or two apart. It was only then that I started it later on at night. I started feeling a lot more full. And then it got to my last meal, which is normally like an overnight oats sort of thing. And I wasn't really hungry for it. Which is what I've said to you, that I could easily just like sit at like 2,500 calories here just for that day. Obviously, over time, I'd probably start getting more hungry the longer I did it. But just for that 1 or 2 days, yeah, I wasn't as hungry. It was only later at night because I was probably having so much fiber all at once, that I started feeling a little bit gassy. But like I said, I did, all in all, I did feel good for it. I don't know if it's a combination of the diet and the fasting. My energy levels felt quite sustained throughout the day. Didn't really have a big drop in. Obviously, most of the time I was dropping gluten as well, which could have been an aspect of it as well. There's obviously big things about gluten, and having all that sort of stuff affecting inflammation for one, and then also kind of your fatigue and drowsiness and whatever, that side of it. So there was loads of factors that could have influenced it. But it was just more later in the day I started feeling a little bit more full and a little bit gassy, but not too bad.
Yeah, so just your body getting used to it. Like you've got like your soluble fiber, which does slow, like it creates like a gel, like it's digestible, like it digests in water, or basically it dissolves in water, and it creates like a gel, and that helps you improve your blood sugar control. So it slows the rate of like glucose and everything getting into the bloodstream. So then that's probably why you felt like your energy levels were more sustained. Because of that, you've got like that trickling effect of, that's why you have like your sort of complex carbs that's got higher fiber, and the combination of the fiber and the complexity of the carbs, it just sort of drip feeds your body with energy. So that's going to keep you feeling like sort of like more sustained energy, and just generally fuller, because as everything slows down through the digestive tract, you're not going to be wanting to eat as much. If you had something really high, like say you had a protein shake and like, I don't know, some Haribos or something, you might have the same amount of calories, but that's going to be in and out of your digestive system. It's going to be absorbed, it's in and out. Next thing, you're going to be feeling quite hungry again. So your satiety is going to be quite high. So that is a beneficial part of the diet. Like that's the thing. People say, I'm going to go vegan to lose weight. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, you can, and it would probably help a lot. Like if people were eating a lot more like fibrous foods, like weight, because not everyone counts their calories. Like counting calories is 100%, but how do you get people to lose weight without counting calories? Like the majority of people are eating way too many calories. They're not counting it. How do you get people to sort of lose weight without counting calories? And getting more of a whole food plant-based diet would be a real genuine option because of that. Like you're saying, you could easily have 1,000 calories less than what you are like you would normally eat, and you didn't feel like hungry. And that's the main thing is for obesity and people putting weight on is satiety. It's like if you're hungry, you're going to want to eat, and then if you go eat some high processed like crappy food, then it's going to be in and out your system, or not in and out, but it's going to be digested and processed a lot quicker. So then you're going to be wanting more food again. So that's a good thing about that. Like more fiber, it does, like say, helps control your body weight. It could possibly prevent like hypertension. It's been shown to like sort of help balance your cholesterol levels as well. Blood sugar levels, like I said, hugely reduces the risk of colon cancer, which is massive. That shouldn't be overlooked. Like lowers the risk of breast cancer, diabetes, again, probably due to the controlling of the sugars. So like there's huge benefits to it. Again, your microbiota, like your gut microbiome itself, like having all of this fiber and the diversity that comes from that, there's huge interactions. Like I'm not an expert on that sort of stuff, and it's such a new science, just nutrition in general, but especially the work looking into the microbiome and what that could potentially do for your health. Even like for your health of your colon, 100%, because you need that fiber. It produces like butyrate, like short chain fatty acids, and your body needs that like for like the lining of the gut cells, or the colon specifically. And also it's used for like the brain, and there's loads of knock-on effects and interactions with the gut microbiome, which is just starting to be really discovered, and just how having more fiber into your diet will diversify the amount of bacteria in your gut, and that has huge positive sort of ramifications for your overall health. So it's like, it's weird because you're not making use of that food, but some of the food that sort of passes through into the colon feeds the bacteria, and then that mutualistic relationship that we have with like a symbiotic relationship with bacteria, that then influences our health. So it's again, it basically, don't be afraid of fiber. Like fiber is your friend. Like get fiber into your diet, you need it. But if you're not used to it, it's going to take a little bit of time to sort of, and you'll see this online if you have a little look, and they'll just say, just slowly work up into that, like big, huge meals. If you're like, okay, I'm going to have like a big meal, it's like chickpeas, black beans, lentils, and then you have all of that in one meal, and you may find that that's going to be quite an issue in terms of gas and bloating. And all that is just the bacteria are working away, digesting that fiber, and then gas is like a byproduct of it, really. So you got to like give your body time to sort of adjust to it. I didn't really find it that much, but I suppose when I first transitioned, but I wasn't really eating, I was eating some like soy products. For me, soy products don't seem to cause a lot of digestion problems. Oh, you got a bit digestion.
That was my stomach. I'm getting hungry now. To all this talk about food, my stomach's
It's like, but yeah, it's, I forgot what I was saying now, but yeah.
Sorry, mate. My stomach's completely put you off.
Off. I was like, that's
sorry, you were talking about soy products.
All right, yeah. So I don't feel as much sort of bloating from those things, and I just basically straight off the bat I was like, right, I need protein. I don't know what I'm doing, like, because I wasn't really a nutritionist then. I just started. I was like, I would just maybe in the first month of being like a nutritionist. I wasn't really sure on the different types of foods. Obviously, I kind of quote unquote.
I've knocked my green screen over. Yeah, people on the podcast who are listening to this are gonna be thinking, what the hell's going on right now?
What's going on?
No, right. Continue, mate. I'm gonna hold on to this just in case.
But yeah, so I went for the protein powders. So the protein powders are not going to be an issue. So in terms of building muscle, and you're worried about that, like, get a protein powder. I mean, I don't really know many even like meat eating bodybuilders that don't sort of have at least some type of protein powder. I mean, everybody does. The studies show that the protein powder, I wrote it down here somewhere again. I think I put too much stuff down, to be fair, but it was basically a study showing that the protein, like soy protein isolate or something like that, was comparable to like whey protein, and there was no difference in sort of muscles strength or lean body mass from a controlled study that was carried out. So the reason being, like, soy protein is really, really good. So supplementing in with that, if you're an athlete, 100%, you're going to need to. Not soy protein. I think if you're eating soy products, you wouldn't necessarily need to have soy protein, but even a pea protein, again, there's lots of studies showing that it's comparable. There's no difference in it. And the reason being that it's got a high digestibility is because it's been stripped of all that fiber and everything. So it's just purely just the protein. So it's absorbed really well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, going for those sort of things, like in terms of like the fiber things, just easing into it. But for me personally, again, it's objective or subjective from my point of view of saying the soy products didn't create as much gas, like the edamame beans and things like that, which I'd eat. Mm-hmm. You've got your tempeh, which is a fermented soy product, so that's basically a probiotic. Probiotics are really, really good to have just anyway, because again, it diversifies. You're feeding your gut bacteria with extra bacteria, and then that sort of helps colonize and grows extra things like extra bacteria in your gut. But that can help if you're having any bloating issues as well. I've seen a lot of people talk about that, the vegans who have transitioned in getting in probiotics, like your like tempeh, and what's the one I'm thinking of? I mean, miso is a little bit, but it is, oh, what's that one? It's
Not tofu. What are you thinking of?
not tofu. It's it's like a Japanese style kimchi. That's it.
Kimchi.
Yeah, kimchi or sauerkraut or anything like that. It's the same sort of health benefits, and it can help reduce any like feelings of bloating and stuff like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I never really tried tempeh actually, so that's one thing I want to try next on me. But that was one thing I said to you as well. Now that I've kind of done the little vegan week, I want to try and transition away from whey products and stuff again, just to get the milk out, any sort of dairy out my system, to see if that helps. If that's one of the reasons why my inflammation was a bit better in terms of my injuries, my ankle, my knees and stuff, having surgeries. I want to see if that's gonna help do that. But again, taste wise, they're not that much different. Obviously, there's some of them that taste a little bit grainy. But the one that I had wasn't too bad. You still there?
Yeah, sorry, man.
All right, mate. You'll say the next
someone's
thing.
trying to ring us there.
No, it's all right. We're going to briefly touch on soy, because this is something that people kind of scared of, having too much soy products.
Yeah.
With testosterone and stuff. So what's your thoughts on it?
So just so I don't hash it completely, oh man, there's an Amazon delivery guy at my door, and he's being very
go on, mate. I'll pause it for you. Right, we're back on. Amazon delivery man interrupted it. We're back on. So talking about soy again, kind of obviously the perceptions behind it, people talking about testosterone stuff. Your thoughts on it?
So yeah, it's basically not true. Soy it's called a phytoestrogen. So it can act and mimic estrogens very, very slightly, but it's weak to like non-existent really. The only two studies where I was looking at, which specifically for this, because I haven't went over it in quite a while. I've done a few posts ages ago in the past when I was doing it, like that sort of side of things. The two cases of anyone having any negative issues or having like stupid amount of like soy products, like 12 servings a day, which I don't even know like who even has 12 servings of soy, who even has 12 meals a day. I don't. So that basically, if you went crazy overboard, maybe, but basically looking into like some like meta-analysis and like systematic reviews, there's like no significant effects of soy protein. This one specifically, no significant effects of soy protein or isoflavone intake. The isoflavones being like the negative thing in the soy, or the negative thing in soy. Intake on testosterone, free testosterone, like free androgen index were detected regardless of statistical model. So basically no effects. The results of this meta-analysis suggest that neither soy foods nor isoflavone supplements after measures of bioavailable testosterone concentrations in men. So it has no effects really. I minced that up, but there's no like effects on testosterone. Been consumed for like thousands of years really. I think it's about 3,000 years it's been eaten, like mainly in like Asian countries and things like that. So it's really like great for your health. So apart from that, like looking at the typical amount of isoflavones that you would go for, you would try and aim for roughly what sort of like people in Asia would sort of eat, and with no health like negative effects of it. Again, but even if you went over that, it's not really gonna have an effect. And there's like things about the man boobs type of thing. Again, just looking at this one, the study states that some phytoestrogens can act as like selective estrogen receptor modulators. Fancy word, but basically like what they can do is they get into the estrogen receptors in the body, and they sort of block it. So they actually block it from a lot of the estrogen from actually doing the work. So even if say, for example, for a guy, you've got that phytoestrogen, it actually goes into the estrogen receptor. Even if it does have an effect on your estrogen, it's going to be so mild, that if you'd actually had your normal estrogen, it would had a more of an effect in your body essentially. And these SERMs, for like the selective estrogen receptor modulators, they've been used for years or they've been developed by the pharmaceutical industry for many years. Widely used SERMs include like tamoxifen, and I'm sure, I don't know, I'm not 100%, but I'm sure like the tamoxifen is like what the like bodybuilders sort of have when they're like coming off the cycle and stuff like that, like to stop aromatization. Again, I just highlighted that. I'm not 100% on it. I don't know what, I'm sure I've heard like bodybuilders I follow and think that, oh, I'm getting onto the tamoxifen and stuff like that. And I think that's to stop the aromatization. So if these soy products are having an effect of reducing aromatization, then that whole thing of, oh, you're going to have man boobs from soy, it's like, it doesn't look like that is going to be the case. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've got anything else about the testosterone. There's loads out there. It's basically, it is like a mistruth that it will affect it, but it's the complications around the isoflavones essentially, or the phytoestrogens in there.
Yeah, but so pretty much there shouldn't be an issue unless you're like hammering down soy for fun.
Unless you're going crazy on it. But again, I'm bringing up that Brian Turner again. He done an experiment when he went months and he just ate stupid amounts of soy, and he got his testosterone tested before and after, and his testosterone was actually higher at the end of it. There's other studies showing that vegans have got higher free testosterone, higher free circulating free testosterone, which again, it could be down to that. We're not 100% sure. There's another one here from Messina. This is another. Man, you must be
sorry,
hungry.
my stomach's going. It's like 4 or 5 times it's happening. I know. It's because all I've had is my post-workout meal, and it's obviously I'm just trying to get some carbs in it, and it's just obviously just going through. Not enough fiber.
Straight through. Not enough fiber. You need more fiber. The drop in testosterone level, no, it's inconsistent. So inconsistent about the testosterone. Should have highlighted this because it's a bit of a lengthy sort of thing there. But again, no effects of soy protein or isoflavone intake on testosterone, sex hormone binding and globulin, free testosterone or free androgen index. Meta-analysis. Oh yeah, this is about I'm just looking. In terms of the testosterone, it's not going to be a thing at all. If you wanted to err on the side of caution, don't drink soy milks as much, and don't go for like your soy proteins. The reason being is because they've got much higher contents of the isoflavones. It's the isoflavones really that's potentially like the negative thing. But essentially, if you want to go for like soy products, going for the isoflavones are broken down more in your tempeh and also your edamame. So your edamame, the green soybeans, are like young beans are taken off the plant before the development of the typical like yellow like soybeans, so they've got lower amounts in them. So if I was to say anything, like maybe if you're going to do it and you're worried about that at all, not that you need to be, but if you are worried, and again erring on the side of caution, go for more of your edamame beans, because the amount of isoflavones or like phytoestrogens in them are so low compared to like if you were slamming back 3 or 4 shakes of soy protein. So I don't have soy protein powder. So if I get any protein powder, it would be some other types of hydrolyzed or like concentrated protein. I would typically avoid that, just because I like to eat soy. I like to eat soy in my day-to-day diet. So if I was eating like 2 servings of soy a day plus eating like having protein shakes on top of that, still trying to get my protein targets in there, it would probably lead to me getting a very high amount of these isoflavones. And looking at my sort of genetic like past, like I'm mainly like sort of Scottish sort of heritage, and the likelihood of loads of soy products going through, like I don't know when the last time my genetic code would have came across soybeans realistically. Like if you're thinking that, so on the side of caution, I would that's what I do personally. I don't have soy proteins. I do have soy milks and stuff sometimes. I was drinking one every day, like a liter, but that was for the choline benefits, to be honest, because it's quite high in choline. And I got a genetic test done saying that I would significantly benefit from getting choline into my diet. So I was just doing that as like I want to get more choline into my diet. This is probably one of the best sources, along with Brussels sprouts and stuff like that. So I'm gonna have that. So that's what I was doing. Plus, it's a good amount of protein. But again, I wouldn't necessarily say it for anyone to drink a liter of that a day. Although I don't know if you follow a guy, Terence Kennedy, vegan
No.
bodybuilder, crazy strong, like doing ridiculous weights, like more of his Olympic lifting, really strong. And he drinks about a liter a day, but I would be careful if you're drinking loads and loads of the fortified plant milk, because you drink a liter of that a day, you're going to get crazy amounts of calcium, and you don't want too much calcium into your diet, because that could lead to potentially like calcification, like of your arteries, if you get way too much calcium in there. So I was drinking like the organic stuff. Yeah, another one, Duncan et al. 2016. Phytoestrogens do not affect human estrogen or testosterone levels, so they have like basically like no effects on that. But they also do the isoflavones themselves shown to have protective roles in breast cancer. Soy consumption was associated with lower risk of cardiovascular disease. Soy consumption was shown to reduce the risk of gastric cancers. Positive isoflavone supplementation, positive effects on improving cognitive function. So there's huge benefits of consuming soy. So that's why I do have it. It's not just because of like the protein, which is great for vegans. It is going to be a better source of, like, if you want like the best bang for your buck in terms of protein in one meal, soy products is going to be the best one. But in terms of like the health benefits from it is really quite profound. Legume consumption was associated with lower cardiovascular disease, again, lower GI cancer risk.
Do you think there's probably more of a worry for people having the likes of like processed meats than there is having soy? Do you think there's probably a lot more of a worry? Because that's another argument with the quality of meat. Obviously these days, reason why they kind of reduce it.
Yeah, well, processed meat's been, it's like graded as a grade 1 carcinogen by the World Health Organization. So in terms of eating that, I wouldn't eat processed meat. That's not ideal for the health. Again, I'll scroll along to it so I don't butcher it completely, because it's trying to remember lots of information off the bat. But basically, what the processed meat, it increases something called your want signaling pathway. So to put it like in a more basic terms, it's the more meat you have, it increases the proliferation, or it increases the amount of gut, like your colon cells specifically, the amount of cells that have to be created. And the more things that are created in general, the more cells, the more sort of cellular production, you're going to have a potential of leading into sort of cancers, essentially, like the byproducts of that. And the only thing that's been shown to negate that is high fiber. Again, I'm going to try and find a specific sort of like specific area on that. But essentially, imagine if you're having like red or processed meat, you've got an increased risk of getting colon cancer. With the only thing that's really reducing that is the fact that you're having fiber. So fiber is actually reducing that, and I think it's like you've got an extra 5 grams of fiber, reduces your risks of getting colon cancer. Again, sorry, I'm just trying to find that.
So what do you know what type of red meat they were using in terms of, was it organic, was it grass fed, or were they just using kind of generic? That's the thing with a lot of the studies that are done. So you listen to the Joe Rogan podcast on the game changers and all that stuff. A lot of the studies weren't done on like the best quality sort of meat, and they're also quite high in fat, a lot of them. So there's obviously things like that you think about. I don't know if it'll say on the study or not like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's more linked, like from the World Health Organization, they basically said it's more your processed meat, that's grade 1, and then your other type, and red meat, and then your other types could potentially be like grade 2 carcinogen. So grade 1's like quite likely it causes cancer, and grade 2 is like it sort of could like cause cancer, so it's not as high. But like increased meat consumption has been linked to increased risk of bowel cancer with dangerous N-nitroso compounds. So what meat's preserved with like nitrates, and then these can turn into these N-nitroso compounds, which then are quite like carcinogenic. They react with like colonocytes, like the actual cells in your colon, inducing polyps and then tumors. So like if anyone's ever known about that sort of stuff, you basically get polyps, and that's like the precursor to like getting tumors like in your colon. There's also like other concerns with eating meat, like about harmful compounds like polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons and heterolytic amines that can be carcinogenic. Again, depending on how you cook meat, you can produce these carcinogenic compounds that I talked about there if you're cooking them on high temperature. So the higher temperature that you cook the meat with, the more likely you get like a chemical reaction between your amino acids and the creatine in the meat. And this creates like carcinogenic compounds. So there's a few different areas that can lead to it, essentially the negative sides of meat. So you've got like the fact that you've got the nitrates that the food is like being preserved with. So that can create like carcinogenic compounds. And that's typically what you're finding with your preserved like meats or your processed meats. That's what you're finding there. How you cook meat, so basically like high heat, so flame grilling, like barbecue is like the worst way to cook meat. Like if you're going to cook meat, if I was to recommend it for your health, in a slow cooker or something like that, because you're not getting these carcinogenic compounds. There's also lots of studies around like heme iron as well. Mm-hmm. So heme iron, again, due to the sort of chemical makeup of it, it can lead to these free radicals. So that can lead to carcinogenic like properties as well. So you get the buildup of free radicals from the heme iron. You've also got like things like IGF-1 increase. So as you have more meat in your diet, you've got more IGF-1, so insulin like growth factor 1. So that's in every like mammalian body. You do need that. It sort of drives growth, and it is necessary for normal production. But increased amounts of IGF-1, which happens to seen with increased meat intake, that increases the risk of things like angiogenesis, which is the formation of new blood cells or new blood vessels. And it essentially, IGF-1 has been shown to really drive cancer. So having high amounts of that is not ideal for your health at all. It is very strongly linked to like cancers and things like that. Mm-hmm. High meat consumption is like, you've got something called mammalian target of rapamycin. Again, it's just another like cancer signaling pathway. When this is upregulated, you've got more chance of getting things like cancer and stuff like that, really. Yeah. So there is definite health like side effects of eating meat, really, especially like your cheaper processed meats. Mm-hmm. And even if you are eating meats, there's the risk of having the heme iron component, which could lead to that. Again, I'm trying to find the thing on there. I've put way too much down, but the heme iron side of it. And if you're cooking it, you can also get these heterolytic amines, which are coming from like high heat. So cooking it on a lower heat is much more beneficial for that.
Mm-hmm. Would you say for anybody to avoid red meat altogether, do you think the risks outweigh any sort of rewards in terms of that aspect?
I would say, yeah. I mean, the risk to reward which you're getting from red meat, I mean, really, yeah, you're getting red meat, like you're going to get proteins, and you're getting some vitamins, minerals, and things like that. But you can get these things from elsewhere. Like we talked about protein, you can get your protein. Like again, if you can always look online, and you'll see that the whole protein thing, it was sort of blown out of proportion. Even like when I was at uni, it was a huge turnaround, like just in the past like year or two, really. And like, okay, humans can actually get more than enough protein from that. And to the point where one of the lecturers stood up in front of the class, and it's almost like he was quite a big meat eater. And it's almost like someone in like the family had died or something. He's like, right, guys, it looks like vegans can get enough protein from plants, which I thought was just a little bit funny. So you can get the protein. So then it's like, right, what are you getting from the meat? Like, yeah, you're getting iron. So again, you're getting iron. As long as you're getting your iron from plants, you can get all the stuff that you can get from meat, you can get elsewhere, in my opinion. So I think, although in the short term, it is better. So it's like, if you're thinking on a day-to-day basis, technically, on a day basis, eating a steak makes more sense because you're going to get more bioavailability of proteins, more bioavailability of your other type of like micronutrients. But on the long term of it, you're probably putting yourself at more of a risk. Whereas if you went for more of the plant proteins, not only will you get your proteins, you'll get your vitamins and minerals, again, like just sort of understanding your diet and what you have to eat. And then the health benefits of a vegan diet on the long term is really profound. So I personally think, again, I didn't get into it for health reasons, but I'm kind of glad I did, because I feel that me going for more plant proteins will actually benefit my health, even if it is not as efficient in that short term. In the long term, it will probably end up being more efficient. But again, it's in the early stages. Not many people have been 100% vegan for that sort of long, but all the studies are pointing towards that is basically going to be the case. Again, you can eat a little bit of meat and still be healthy, but it's like how much meat and what type of meat that you're eating, really.
Yeah, I think it's got to be the highest quality. That's the one thing that I'm really kind of conscious of now, is trying to get organic, all the grass-fed sort of stuff, rather than just going for like I used to when you were low on protein one day, going to Tesco and buying like the little packs of pre-cooked chicken, which are just full of God knows what and stuff. And then you can go down the Joe Rogan route and go, you only eat, what is it, like elk that he only eats. The only sort of meat that he really eats. He doesn't touch chicken or anything like that. He only touches like certain quality.
It's lower in saturated fat. So that's the idea behind that, is lower in saturated fat. So the high saturated fat intake is very strongly correlated to like increased cardiovascular disease. So the more saturated fat that you have in your body, the more bad cholesterol that you're going to be like pushing out, and then that bad cholesterol then leads to like atherosclerosis, where you're building a plaque on the arteries, which then leads to a blockage of the arteries, and then like could lead to a heart attack, we could get a stroke, or whatever it may be. So reducing your saturated fat, 100% definitely do that, and that's only really going to come from reducing your meat intake. Not many like plant-based foods have a lot of saturated fat in them. The only one that would be having high is like coconut oil, which there's a big myth that coconut oil is really good for you. It's not good for you. It's really bad for you. It's like a terrible oil. Nobody should really be having coconut oil at all.
Yeah.
Stop coconut oil. You're just having stupid amounts of
Unless
saturated
you're putting it in
fat.
your hair for whatever reason, girls.
Yeah.
That's about it, really.
That's more beneficial for your health, to have it like in your hair, 100%, because it's the saturated fat element. So that's one of the big reasons like cardiovascular disease has been shown to be better with the vegan diet, because you just basically get hardly any saturated fat in your diet. You need like little bits, but you're not having too much saturated fat. That reduces your cholesterol levels. And the plant-based diet is being shown, or at least a really strict like vegetarian diet is being shown to be like the only diet to reverse like heart disease. So that's pretty profound, because like heart disease or cardiovascular disease is like the #1 killer in the world. Like it's the biggest killer. So even like something cancer, it's the biggest killer. And again, it's like lifestyle factors. You can't just say it's definitely one thing. Like that's the thing with like epidemiological studies. You can never say it's definitely this, but there's things that come into play. Like you've got like how active you are, what your body weight is, like how much body fat, and like what type of foods you eat, and what like your saturated fat. But again, the saturated fat is really highly linked to that.
I was gonna say, are you into conspiracy theories? Just to put this one out there, do you think, obviously with aging population, all this stuff, do you think there's a thing in terms of industries, especially the meat industry, are funded so much to try and help? Because like you said, heart disease is the biggest killer in terms of in terms of everything. Obviously, you're talking about meat with high saturated fat. Do you think there's a big kind of link between that, knowing obviously there's loads of conspiracy theories about the virus that's going around at the minute? I know I'm big into this, which is why I'm bringing it up. And then I've noticed the last few, often if you look on Netflix, there's that new meat thing, like the flame grill. I've noticed there's a lot more TV programs based around meat, because of the last few years, veganism's obviously kind of slowly increasing. Do you believe in that sort of stuff? I just thought I'd bring it up just because it's one of them things that bring like kind of pops in my mind.
So, I mean, what in terms of like they want to get more people to eat meat?
Mate, I don't know, but I'm just skitchy about this sort of stuff. You never know what could
Yeah,
happen.
I mean, there's huge, like the thing is at the minute, like it's quite clear that like a vegan diet is like really really good for the environment,
Mm,
for like things like CO2 emissions, for like reducing land use and water use and all that sort of stuff, which is huge within like the sustainability goals for like the UN. They've got like a 2030 agenda, like where they'll be moving people more towards plant-based. But then it's governments that can't just be like, okay, yeah, like let everyone go plant-based now, because there's a couple of reasons. Is because they've got to protect business interests, and also they're worried that people would become like deficient in nutrients because they don't understand. A lot of people don't, like me and you, we like to look into like nutrition and understand that you could go vegan tomorrow and you would like look into that and you'd be fine. There's other people that may go vegan, and there's still some vegans now that they're typically like junk food vegans, and they're not very healthy. And obviously, if you're going on the junk food vegan route, then you're probably not going to be healthy at all. The junk food like route, which is pretty much like the Western diet. I mean, the Western diet is like terrible diet. It's really, really bad. But yeah, in terms of what you're saying specifically, I don't know if there's like a conspiracy to get people to eat more meat, but it would probably be just to trying to offset the business impacts, because
yeah, it's
like
such
the
a big
dairy
industry, isn't
industry,
it?
yeah. It's like it's if every like the amount of money that would be lost if everyone just went vegan, it would be crazy. I mean, there's money to be made in other places, but they've got to get those systems in place really. The
Mm,
government have to look after the health of the people, but they've also got to look after business interests at the same time. That's my point of view from it. So they can't just be like, even though technically it would maybe better for a lot of people's health to go more plant-based. Again, business interests are going to be in there. You've got
mm-hmm.
things like lobbying from like big corporations. They're heavily like tied in. So like the dairy industry and meat industries, they're going to be like lobbying. I mean, they've just done a recent thing in the European Union. They're trying to get like plant-based meats to be, well, they're not be allowed to called meat, or we're trying to get the plant-based sausages not be allowed to be called sausages or burgers. You're not allowed to really call like plant-based milks. They don't call milks. Like technically it's not milk. So then they call it like a plant-based drink. So if you like,
Yeah.
so you might have an almond drink or a soy drink or something like that. So yeah, I don't know. What were you thinking more on that conspiracy side of things?
I don't know. Just obviously, there's a lot of obviously we know there's a lot of negative effects from the processed meat and stuff like that, and it would be kind of stupid to kind of keep on funding them sort of industries because they know they're doing damage to everybody, but they're getting funded so much. Like the fast food industry is massive, kind of thing. So there's that balance. Like there's the ethical side of like we need to obviously take care of everyone on the planet, but then there's also funding the industries, and then like is there something, I don't know. I just like make conspiracy theories, man. I was just bringing it up for the just to
Yeah.
see our thoughts on it anyway. Let's see
Yeah,
if
no, I
people
mean,
might be commenting thinking like why is he talking about that, but it's just something that, and then there might be some people that are kind of thinking oh maybe there is something there,
well, I've
there
heard
is a
like
link between it.
yeah, I've heard conspiracy theories being like, oh, it's from the other side, where they're trying to get people to be eating more plant-based. It's like that's a conspiracy.
Mm,
Like, oh no, that they're trying to take away our meat, and they're trying to do this, and they're trying to just feed with vegetables, and trying to give it all this GMO stuff, and like that. I've heard the anti-vegan sort of thing is like there's a conspiracy to make people unhealthy from like not eating meat. So I've actually heard it from a different side.
all right.
I don't know if you've heard that sort of like that
Oh,
side
it's
of it,
interesting though. It's interesting to talk about
but
anyway.
I mean, just thinking about like diet quality. I mean, the most studied diet out there is like the Mediterranean diet. Again, nutritional sciences is only like 100 something years old. It's not a big. It's going to be a new thing. Like in 200 years, 300 years, we're going to know like a lot more about nutrition. We're going to have a lot clearer ideas. But like the Mediterranean diet is shown to be like the healthiest diet. Obviously, what you're comparing it to, the Western diet is terrible diet. Like it really like increases like obesity, like saturated fat, like cardiovascular disease, all that sort of stuff. But like the meat consumption is that, I mean, nobody's eating like processed meats really in that diet. If they're having red meat, they're having it maybe one time a week. The chicken they're having is maybe like 2 to 3 times per week, fish 1 to 2 times per week, and they're eating the majority of the diet is coming from like whole plant-based foods, really. So thinking like maybe 90% of the food is coming from fruits and vegetables, like nuts, oils, and like healthier oils, like olive oil, and then just small amounts of animal products. So that is something more to aim towards in terms of your health. That would improve like sustainability as well. And then it gets to the point where it's like, well, if you can get all your nutrients from that, so say if you got 90%, and it's like, that's what people are saying, well, I'm plant-based because the majority of my diet comes from plants, which is true. That's how humans should be. You're getting all your beneficial like phytonutrients as well. So like all your like antioxidants and all these things, like the different types of antioxidants and different colors, fruits. So like the different like red, green, like orange, all these different like antioxidants in those foods. Those types of foods will give you sort of a different potential benefits, like health benefits, mainly just sort of reducing like free radicals and things like that. So that's the benefit of getting your fruits and vegetables, apart from like the good sources of nutrients that do sort of help knock-on effect of like your cholesterol levels and all these sort of things. So I would just say generally like aiming to go like 90% like plant-based with a little bit of meat now and again, not going crazy overboard, obviously cutting out processed foods. Like if you're going plant-based, like go for whole foods, don't necessarily eat loads of processed like fake meats, because that's not going to be like ideal for your health at all. Because again, any type of processed foods are going to be detrimental to your health. So just sticking to as most close whole foods as possible, and then if you can make the switch to 100% fully plant-based, you feel confident with it, then I think you should. Again, the benefits for your health, as long as you're getting the nutrients in, there's no real reason to, really. I mean, that's the only issue, like for your health. It's like if you can't get your nutrients, it's like, all right, well, maybe I'll have to eat a bit of meat. But like even like stuff, the B12 is the biggest contested sort of like nutrient like there is really with it. And B12 is found, well, B12 comes about because of like microbial interaction. So you've got like, it's cobalamin is needed, like cobalt is needed, which is like a mineral in the earth, and then that is incorporated in like basically a bacteria, ribosomal bacteria will then use the cobalt and make cobalamin. And then that's how like cobalamin B12 is created. So it comes from bacteria. It doesn't actually come from animals. The benefit of eating an animal is because the animal has the actual bacteria in its gut, it can then create it, and then it gets into the tissues of the animals. Humans really were shown that we don't have these bacteria which produce B12, so then we sort of need it in our diet. So then you can eat an animal meat and you can get it, but like throughout history, humans probably didn't always get just that B12 from that. So B12, again, like I said, due to like microbial sort of interaction or symbiosis with plants and animals, it gets incorporated into plant cells as well. So good sources for vegans are things like mushrooms and algae, essentially like seaweed. That nori, specifically purple larva nori, is like the best source. So you've got natural sources of B12. So it's not something that is like you can't get. So you can actually get natural sources of B12. So again, taking a B12 supplement just in case is always a good thing, because you can't always guarantee that the mushrooms you're getting are high in B12, again, because of the microbial sort of like the symbiotic relationship between the actual bacteria and the plants, mainly because of large scale industrialization of like or agriculture, that basically ruined soil diversity. So you don't have the bacteria like there used to be, where you're getting that great interaction with the plants themselves, where you're getting a high amount of B12 in the actual like mushrooms, for example, if we're talking about mushrooms. But wild mushrooms, because they're normally obviously grown wild and usually in forests, they've got a good diversity of bacteria there, so you can actually get a good amount of B12 from those. Seaweed specifically apparently needs it needs B12 for it to be able to grow. So seaweed, on the most part, is pretty much always going to have it. And I got some seaweed recently, actually from Tesco, and I said like one sheet of it contained like 20% of my B12, which that was on the low side really, because like this purple seaweed, purple nori, I don't think I've tried it, has extremely high amounts in there. And it's typical for, like, say, people in Japan to have like a couple of sheets of nori like every day for their breakfast. So you can get it, again, just on the air and on the side of caution for now, because it's not hugely accepted that you can sort of get that from plants. But you can, if you research into it, that you can actually you can find it in plants. There's a few different plants that have it in there, like they're the main ones essentially. Sources of nori, even fermented soy products like tempeh has been shown to have considerable amounts of B12, 0.7 to 8 micrograms per 100 grams. So you're needing about 2.4 micrograms a day. But obviously, if you're getting your tempeh and it's got 0.7, it's because of the variability of the B12 content. It's like, are you getting enough? Are you not? So that's why it's recommended to have an actual B12 supplement, because of the variability. You've got things like the fruit and body of the black trumpet or golden chanterelle mushrooms. These are like wild mushrooms. They've got higher levels of like 1.9 to 2.65 micrograms, 100 grams. That's a dry weight. Other types of mushrooms, 50 grams dried shiitake mushrooms. Again, that's a lot of it's a lot of dried mushrooms, but again, you do get that in there. You can find it naturally. So I think with time progresses on, you will be able to have more, as knowledge increases, you'll get more access to these natural sources of like these like trouble nutrients that people are concerned about. Was a nutritional analysis of 6 vegan children who had consumed vegan diets included brown rice and dried purple nori, or dried purple larva, which is called nori, for 4 to 10 years, suggested that the consumption of nori may prevent vitamin B12 deficiency in vegans. There was another study, and I couldn't find it. I was trying to find it for like half an hour, and that's messed us up because I wasn't like to highlight some stuff, but I was trying to find the specific study. But basically, they tested these vegans who were having like B12 supplements. I think it was like omnivores as well, and then there was also people that were eating seaweed specifically. They were having no B12 supplements whatsoever. They were eating seaweed and they were eating wild mushrooms, which is sort of foraged. And they weren't B12 deficient, and they had similar levels of B12 to everybody else. So you can get it like naturally. So I don't know how we got onto the B12 specifically there, but like in terms of that, like the troubled sort of nutrients, you can get it. And as time progresses and understanding more about the bacterial symbiosis between like bacteria and plants, that's where the things are going to really develop, and they're going to be able to create like more regular and more reliable sources of B12 in the future.
Yeah, so to be fair, we're kind of early in the studies as well of like plant-based diets and stuff as well, because it's only really came about the last few years, and there isn't any really long-term studies on it. So there's probably going to be more that's going to come out. God, I might as well ask you, what's your opinion on game changers? Do you think a lot of the arguments in there were biased, or were there some good points to be made? Because a lot of people, that's where most people get their knowledge of vegans, like the vegan diet from the minute.
I don't know. I watched it, and it got really bashed by people like afterwards. I didn't really look into it too much, to be honest. I know they were talking about the protein side of it, and to be honest, I ended up looking into more. Did you see the guy who produced it ended up going onto the Joe Rogan podcast?
Yeah, that's what I've listened to. I've listened to a little bit of the ones, I think James something, I think he's called, the guy who was meant to be like the opposing side of not. He used to be a vegan, the opposing guy as well. But I listened to his podcast as well. He's kind of bashing the documentary as well.
I mean, he got absolutely slaughtered. Really, he got absolutely slaughtered in that. Like he basically, that all come to the agreement that protein was not an issue. They come to the agreement that a lot of people basically also feel that the B12 thing, like Like you specifically take a B12 supplement before, didn't you? Like you were
Yeah, I
taking
already
that.
did anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like some people who eat meat, it depends on if you lack the intrinsic factors in your gut, which binds the B12 and takes it through, which is needed to absorb it. There's some people that do need B12, and I think they were saying like 40% of Americans or something are B12 deficient, which again, I don't know 100% on that, but you can quite easily be B12 deficient. So, I mean, anybody, they come to the agreement from talking about the game changers, they come to the agreement that, okay, like everyone should sort of take a B12 supplement, which I sort of agree with. Again, if your B12 supplement or you're deficient in B12 because of the lack of the intrinsic factors or other issues like that, then people get the intramuscular injections of B12.
Yeah.
And I know people that like eating meat, and they basically had to get this B12 injection. So it's a bit of a funny one. B12. It's a weird nutrient, like a weird water soluble nutrient, because you can store it in your liver for like up to 5 years. So that's like one of the things with being vegan. You can if you don't get it in your daily diet, which you probably won't, you could end up you wouldn't really know that you are B12 deficient for maybe like some years, like 3, 4, 5 years, until your body had depleted its stores.
Yes, you should be all right. Hey, I think a kind of white monster's got the daily recommended allowance of B12.
Yeah, they've
Get
got
yourself a
loads
white
in.
monster down you. I mean, they're probably not great for your life, but it's got B12. I was going to say the thing on the game changers. I was trying to look for it on my phone when you were talking, but I screenshotted it. I
Yeah,
must have deleted it. About the blood samples that they took when they had someone had like
yeah,
plant-based meal and thing. I seen not a pharmacologist, some nutritionist or something that actually explained what it was. It was something to do with obviously the fat in the chicken. There's something in your blood, like the cloudiness is actually like your body doing its job of breaking down the fat. That's why one was clear. He said what they should have
right,
done
okay,
was you should have got the fasted blood samples of a meat eater and a full
yeah,
vegan to compare it. Then it would have been a fair experiment. So
yeah,
that was one of the things that was one of the big topics as well. One of the big kind of
yeah. So it's like
tests.
what sort of like your triglyceride levels are. Obviously, if you've just eaten a high fat meal compared to like a vegan meal, you're gonna have more fat in your blood straight away after. So yeah, doing it on a fasted level would probably be more fair. Again, I don't think I don't know. I haven't tried to like back up the stuff in the game changers. But there's probably people that have looked into it a lot, and like this specific thing that they said here is wrong, or this one's good, and they're probably right. I don't know. Like I say, I know that you said you were wanting to talk about the game changer, but honestly, I watched it once. I sort of like, oh, that was good, and then I sort of left it at that. And the only thing I really seen about afterwards was that Joe Rogan podcast when that guy was on there. And he basically showed that it was really beneficial. I mean, I think he was going from the inflammation point of view, really, which the studies do show that vegans have got much lower C-reactive protein, which is like a type of inflammatory marker, which obviously lower inflammation. It was more for his recovery side of things.
Yeah, one of the things that I didn't realize, which you discussed actually on one of the podcasts, I don't think it was that one. So it's the one that I've got up. It's the James Wilkes is the guy, and the guy who's I think defending it's called Chris Kressler. But the one where just Chris Kressler's on it, they talk about the filming of the show when obviously the main thing is the what's his name, Chris Wilkes, whatever his name was, James Wilkes, sorry. When he had a really bad injury, was it his ACL or something, his knee, and his recovery, all the video and stuff is him actually just acting it and just playing it out, rather than the actual filming. Like him when like researching it with his foot up elevated and stuff is all acting, and him doing the injury stuff, it's all acting. Him doing the battle ropes, it was all sort of thing. So they were kind of arguing against like him doing that 1 hour stint on the battle ropes. Was it real sort of thing? Was it, or is it because it was just all staged, a lot of stuff? So I think what he done, he put a very good argument down. I would definitely say he battled well for the side, but there's points for both sides. But
Again, I mean,
B12,
probably a
he
couple
just cemented it.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't put too much like I don't put too much like attention at it, because I mean it's really it's a documentary on Netflix. Do you know what I mean? It's hopefully people aren't getting all of their like nutritional knowledge from documentaries off Netflix, because that's just going to lead to like bad situations. Like if you look into the research, that's where you're going to see like the reality of like sort of what's going on. And the plant-based diet, again, if you can get all your protein, you can get all your nutrients, and it doesn't have the negative carcinogenic effects, in my opinion, people should be aiming more towards that. Even if it's not 100% vegan, to be like fair enough, like, but you shouldn't be eating a lot of animal meats at all. And everyone should be trying to learn more about the diet and trying to be sort of more conscious about what they're actually eating, not just because of calories. But that's the thing, like, man, how many people do we work with, and it's like trying to get them to sort of count calories and understand calories. That's hard enough. Never mind trying to be like, oh, so why are you eating that? Oh, yeah, because it's got calcium in it. And it's like, man, apart from like your typical stuff that's hammered down, like, oh, like milk or whatever's got calcium, like a lot of people don't know the nutrients that they're consuming. And that's the big issue. It's like we need to start teaching people about nutrition. Like everyone should be a nutritionist. Like, it annoys me sometimes that there's nutritionists. Like, I've qualified as a nutritionist, but it annoys me I shouldn't have to be. Everyone should be a nutritionist. Like, there's not many things that you have to do as a human other than sort of feed yourself and like get shelter, and then everything else is a sort of an extra. So drink water, eat, get shelter. So like everyone should know about this. You should teach people in schools like how to sort of feed themselves, and teach that it should be a part of a class, just like, you know, you do like maths, you do English, you do science, and you do like nutrition. That should just be a thing. So then people would know what nutrients they're getting, and then people could start making the sort of the choices from coming from a place of like knowledge that informed. They can make informed decisions off looking at like just the research and make logical sort of decisions of, okay, maybe I'll just eat this because it's going to be beneficial to my health and still get these nutrients, and there's less risk of it being carcinogenic. I mean, you don't really hear of any sort of, it's not up for debate like, oh, like bananas potentially carcinogenic, or not sure if it is, or like there is, like, obviously it may sound biased coming from my point of view, but there is a lot of like, say, research into that, the negative health consequences of meat. So talking about the game changers specifically, I wouldn't really put too much I wouldn't look at that too much. If you're going to look at some stuff, like have a look at what was that weightlifter guy who got like the world record, he won the gold medal or something.
Oh, right.
Like,
I know what you mean. Yeah,
obviously crazy strong, he's fully vegan. I mean, does that prove anything? I mean, not really, but it just shows you that you can be fully plant-based and be like really strong. I heard some negative things because the guy who was the world's strongest man in that, who was vegan. Well, that's it. He's on steroids, but it's like, so you can't. He's on steroids, and he's not the world's strongest man anymore. This was in 2002, and it's like, well, if you're going to be world's strongest man, you're probably going to be on steroids. So it's not the fairest thing, but it's not a perfect thing. I would love to produce something which was like, again, speaking about things, I get things muddled up. I'm not the most the best speaker, to be honest, but in terms of writing stuff down, I would love to put it across that way, and even produce a video, because it's going to be easier for people to sort of for it to sort of sink in. But there is huge like justification for a plant-based diet, which you're not necessarily going to get from the game changers. Like, it's good, but it's not perfect. But I thought it was good. It was a good watch. But yeah, again, not a perfect sort of way to show that the vegan diet is really good. Again, if there's going to be flaws that people are going to pick apart, then obviously instantly, as soon as you hear negative thing, and the thing is, when people are thinking about like the vegan diet, because there's so much negative connotations towards it, as soon as you hear one negative thing, this one person said a negative thing, it's all a load of crap. So people sort of throw it out the window a little bit.
There's always going to be opinions on whatever it is, but in terms of like the vegan diet, what I found, it does make you more health conscious, and like you mentioned, in terms of education, of actually like at schools and stuff like that. If people need to be able to learn to invest in their own health and like actually look up what they're putting into the body, because it's going to affect them long term. If you don't care about your health, fair enough, do what you want. Like everyone can do what they want, but I think if you value your own health, not just in terms of looking good, but also just the stuff that's happening inside you. If you want to live a happy life and your kids are going to grow up, like you're going to watch your kids growing up and they're not going to have to deal with you getting an illness young. Obviously, there's going to be sad things that do happen to people which you can't control.
It's
but
the long term.
To help you, it's definitely the long term. But it definitely did make me more conscious about what I was eating, but also how I was feeling as well. And which is what I've said, obviously, the last week when I've kind of integrated a little bit of meat in the diet. Like I had a pizza at the weekend at Domino's. I felt like crap the next day. Like something I literally said, like I felt like hungover almost, because I hadn't ate. I kind of noticed the effects of what certain foods are having on my body a lot more now that I've kind of had that 1 week eating really clean, eating fully plant-based. And I felt great from it. And now I can obviously notice it, which is why I'm going to try and integrate a lot more plant-based stuff with a little bit of meat. Maybe one day I might end up going full vegan, which definitely like made us think about it, especially the ethical side as well, a lot more. So I think a lot of people should think about.
I personally I agree. I think that if like the ethical side for me is just like 100 is a game changer. Like I know that's what I do. It was a game changer, because even for me, if I was like, okay, I've got to have a B12 supplement for the rest of my life, like I wouldn't be bothered. It wouldn't matter to us, because again, I still think that's not a huge deal. Like how many people have supplements? Do you know what I mean? Like it's supplements around the world, like a multi-billion-dollar, multi-pound, you know what I mean? Like multi-million-pound sort of business, like way before vegans existed. So there's obviously there's reasons why the supplements out there, is because people need them, because people don't get all of the nutrients from food. It's just like it's as simple as that. Like it doesn't mean that you're eating like a meat-eating diet, like a meat-based diet, that you're getting all of your nutrients from food. Because again, it's like you need a well-planned vegan diet, which you do, but to be healthy on the long term, you need a well-planned, like any diet, you should be thinking, what am I actually getting the nutrients? Like even if you are eating meat, it doesn't mean that you're getting every single nutrient in the right amounts that you need. Again, that links into sort of like your genetic predisposition as well. Like I'm at higher need folate. I basically have like a genetic, I have an enzyme that doesn't work as well for the folate the MTHFR tetrahydrofolate. Oh, it's a huge word, and you see it written down, you're like, what on earth is that, all one word? But it's like an enzyme which converts like your folate to like your more available form, which is used like in the body. And because of that, I mean, luckily I'm plant-based, so I eat loads and loads of like folate. Like folate is one of the foods that the nutrients that you're not really going to have an issue with on a plant-based diet. But if I didn't, I mean, the likelihood is that I would actually potentially be more at risk of being like anemic and stuff like that, because of the reduced bioavailability, in a sense, that I would be that I would have of folate. So everyone should sort of get a genetic test really, and just sort of see what nutrients, because there are nutrients of concern that you may need. And it doesn't mean that just because you're on a certain type of diet that you're going to get all of your nutrients on board. So I would just say for people, again, it's just more the educational thing. Like people should learn more about the diet, but then when you do learn more about it, then you can actually start thinking, well, then the other aspects come in. Because I feel like it's hard for some people to be fully ethical on it when you're thinking, well, I'm going to be deficient in nutrients. You're going to be like, well, stuff it. It's either me or them type of thing, and I'm going to choose them, which makes sense. But then when you see like, actually, I can get the nutrients from the food, then you can start exploring those alternative sides, which maybe you didn't get into that for. You're sort of thinking, oh, well, I'm getting my, if I can get my nutrients, then maybe then it's not that bad really. And it's almost, I would feel a bit bad bringing these animals into this world to kill them, to eat them, when you don't sort of need to do it. And that's the big debate, and it will in the future, it'll sort of come forward, like there'll be more and more evidence to show that eating plant-based foods will get you the nutrients that you require, and then people can then start thinking more about other aspects. Like, is that going on?
Yeah, the airport's gone now. Don't worry about me. So I was gonna say, I think if you put the ball in the other foot, I think if we were brought up with the plant-based diet and then people started like saying, oh, like we need to start eating meat because it's better for you, we're going to start killing animals, blah, blah, blah. Put it the other way around. People start thinking like, well, what is this sort of thing? Like, is this actually like, it would be like, well, this is crazy why we're doing this. So again, it's just being more open-minded about stuff. And again, thinking about the ethical reasons and the health reasons behind it. But we'll wrap up with the last three questions, unless there was any other points you wanted to briefly make.
Just for the environmental things, like I say, we'll say like that the animal agriculture sort of increases greenhouse gases by at least like 28%. What else? We've got like expected increase of 70%. So you'd have 70% more available calories if the crops that are fed to animals were instead consumed by humans. So it's very inefficient. The whole inefficient thing is the amount of food that is fed to like beef to produce like, so the amount of calories that is fed to like the livestock to produce a small amount of calories. So it's not very efficient on that front, and the only way to really fuel the increasing growth of meat consumption is to destroy more land. So I know you were talking about that David Attenborough thing, was that if everyone had more land, I think that's what he's talking about. And the reason why the like habitat destruction is being used is to basically to fuel the meat consumption. So the amount of food we're growing for animals just to eat the animals, it gets to the point where it's not logical. So from an environmental point of view, it is not ideal. And then you've got like, yeah, the Eat Lancet report, like, which is a big report on like all things like environmental, saying that animal protein should be reduced by 40 to 70% due to the sustainability around it. So they are aiming to get that. The Dietetics Association, British Dietetics Association, are recommending reductions of red meat to under 70 gram per person, with increased consumption of beans and pulses for protein instead, due to their lower carbon emissions and water and land use. So switching your meat proteins, even if you're just reducing it, not fully going off it, but reducing that to get more plant proteins in, and that's going to offset the negative effects of the environmental impacts. The Carbon Trust undertook a comparison of this Eat Well plate, which was put forward by the British Dietetics Association. So it's worth having a look onto that. It's called the One Blue Dot. And they're putting forward information on how to be more, basically, like reduce carbon footprint by eating more plant-based foods. And they said, demonstrated if everyone went to that, there would be like 31% reduction in greenhouse gases, 17% less water use, 34% reduction in land use. So as again, that's just literally, it's touching the surface of like the information out there. So I would just say, depending on why you want to go vegan, before we get on to those last questions, just sort of like have a look into the three reasons. Like the nutrients, you will be able to get everything. Like you can get your B12, but even if you have to have a B12 supplement, it's not the end of the world. And in fact, potentially it might even benefit you because you could be low on B12 anyway, especially as you get older and you have a trophic like gastritis, where your body loses the ability to produce produce like the intrinsic factors specifically for B12. But then looking into things like the moral and ethical side of things, and also the environmental side of it, it's three huge areas that once you see that you can be fine from your nutrition, then changing over to a more plant-based diet is going to help like reduce like needless sort of harm to animals, because like I say, from my point of view, it is quite needless, because we don't need it to survive. It's going to help the environment massively, which is a big thing. People want that to happen. And also, it's probably, as long as you're eating well and you're not like, like junk food diet, it's probably going to benefit your health as well. You probably are going to live longer, again, by reducing the risks of cancer and just generally the health promoting effects of having more fruits and vegetables sort of in your diet. At the very least, it's aiming to be more like a Mediterranean style diet, which most people, if they've done that, they would be like, they would cut their meat consumption down like a huge amount. So definitely have a look into those little things if people are interested in that.
Yeah. If there's any links and stuff, like I said, I'll send them over and I'll put them all in the show notes for people to look at.
I mean, I've got pages of information there, but I should have shortened them down. I've probably butchered half of it, to be fair.
No, mate, you've done well, mate. I think there's a lot of things that people probably didn't realise, and hopefully people listen all the way to the end and definitely take into consideration a lot of things that you say. I take them in. Obviously, we chat at work and stuff about them, so it's definitely worth thinking about. And I did feel a lot better that 1 week that I did do it. Just obviously doing a long-term kind of study for myself on it would be quite a good thing to do. So definitely stick at it if you get it, worth a try, definitely. But yeah, we'll finish off with the last 3 questions, as I always ask every single guest. Because we've got on this, we've been going a good solid 2.5 hours, mate. Obviously, I think I'm going to split this podcast up. First half talking about obviously yourself, and then the personal training side and social media, and then splitting it into the more vegan topic, which I think people will find interesting. So, first question: 3 people you'd like to invite round for dinner or coffee?
So again, I was sort of struggling on this one. I like JFK. I'd like to get him around talking about the conspiracy side of things.
Yeah.
I want to be like, what's the was it the industrial war complex of it? Right, what's going on with that? Just sort of into the conspiracy things. Then it would probably be like, I don't know. I would like to speak to anyone from like 2,000 to 5,000 years ago, or someone from the past. So imagine like speaking to someone like 2,000 years ago, or even around the time when Jesus was around. Be like, is Jesus around? What's going on? Do you know what I mean? Like, what's happening with that sort of stuff? Like, I speak to someone 10,000 years ago. Like, what's life like? Like, what's your belief systems? And I don't know. I'd be interested in that sort of stuff personally. And then I'm not too sure on anyone else. To be fair, it would just be more. I don't know. Like, yeah, I would love to speak to someone from the past. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one, to be fair. I haven't really had too many people from the past. I had Elvis. Someone said Elvis once. Just to be interesting. Elvis is a good one. Right, second one, 3 people you want to train with.
So I thought about this one. I was like, right, it's got to be Arnold. It's got to be the typical Arnold.
He's
if
always
you can't
in. He's always in.
And not want to train with Arnold, so I was like, I'll put that one out. A bit of a cliche, but then I would actually love to train with my like younger self. Like, not that I used to train, so obviously I was probably overweight, but I would love to go back and train with myself, and just to be like, or get myself into training, or just even when I first getting into the gym, like teaching myself how to go on, because I would have improved like massively. And then anyone else I want to train with, again, I don't have any specific people that I would like to train with, but I don't like chase after like names like that person or whatever. But just anyone that could teach us anything, like that's who I like to train with. If I hadn't trained with someone, like I say, I took information from you. We've had good conversations about training, and I take that stuff on board. So anybody really, if I speak to anybody, and I always listen, like even people that have no like PT experience or experience about the scientific, the human body, because there's a lot of people I've spoken to in the past have got a really good understanding of how to train without that. It's like an intrinsic sort of like knowledge that's just inside of them. And then I listen to that, and then I can be like, actually, yeah, like that backs up some studies that I could learn something off, whether it's crazy in-depth like nutritional stuff or like in-depth like scientific stuff about like training. Like Mike Israetel would be a good one to train with. I do like his stuff for the training. Just anyone I could learn from, though, like literally it could be absolutely anybody, just as long as I could get some sort of value out of it, and they could teach me something from that training session.
Oh, that's decent. Mike Israetel's a good one, to be fair. And last one, one thing you'd say to yourself, we'll go 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Your choice. One thing you'd say to yourself 5 or 10 years ago.
5 or 10 years ago, I would say, well, 10 years ago, I'd be like, you'll not believe like where you are compared to where you were. Because like I say, 10 years ago, 19, incredibly overweight, had absolutely no ambition whatsoever, and like just had no ambition, not have a clue what I wanted to do, so uneducated, just left school at 16, like just didn't do well at school at all, was always messing about, and just to the point where you'd be like, okay, like you'd actually you'd end up in the future, like 10 years on, you'd be like a PT and like a nutritionist, and like with actual desires and ambitions to like go on and continue learning more, and just to say to myself, you'll be a complete different person, and sort of have some sort of like a bit of positivity about about yourself, like feel good that you will actually do 10 times more than what you thought, and then like and aiming to at least have that desire inside yourself to do more as well, which is what I'd want. But just generally just sort of stay focused and think about the big picture, and like basically like the most precious currency that you have is time, really. So like spend it wisely, because obviously you don't get that back.
I like that, mate. Nice way to finish. It goes to show that obviously, like, even if you are like 19, 20, you don't know what to do with your life, some things take a little bit longer than others. So just be patient with it, stick at it. And if you're doing the right things, good things will come. But that was an absolute pleasure, Mark. Thank you very much for coming on again. Yes. Nice long podcast. So hopefully people have made it all the way to the end. I might put these 3 questions with the first part. I think it'll go nicely with the first part of the podcast. Right. And then obviously the vegan part, the second part. That was very good, mate. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. And again, like I say, I slaughtered the vegan the topic of it, like talking about it. So if you wanted to do one in the future again, where I could actually get it into a more of a succinct sort of way, or if anyone has any like a backlash of what I say and they want to go into it a bit more. Because again, I've been so busy. I wanted to prepare for this podcast a bit more, because there's so many different areas, and again, when I speak, I can be a bit like a bit all over the place. So again, I would do that again if someone wanted to bring somebody else in and we could talk about.
We'll have another vegan debate down the line. If there's any questions people want to ask Mark or myself, you said, have you deleted your Instagram now, or is it still?
Now I've got a few things. I'm a little bit busy with what I'm doing, and I've got a few things that I want to focus on. And again, I was spending loads of time. I was doing it is on there. Like there's a few posts on there for my vegan thing. It's called like plant-based nutrition. So if people want to go on that, I haven't deleted that or like disabled it or anything. I've disabled my other one, the PT side of it, because my head was just in loads of different things what I wanted to do. And again, I feel like the benefit to the reward that you get from putting in all that time. For me, what I was wanting to do was putting too much time in. I was spending like hours and hours and hours to create like one post on like folate. And so if anyone wants to look into it, I was doing the A to Z of micronutrients. So I'm up to like basically just about to do B12. But just to show that you can get these nutrients. So I might just jump on and put the B12. So if anyone wants to look at that more in depth, I write better than I talk, by the way.
I'll put the Instagram or whatever it is down below. Anything, just send it over afterwards. But that was a pleasure, mate. Thank you very much.
No, you're welcome, man. Cheers, man.